And what is up, gentlemen? Trevor, Elliot, how are we doing? Pump Fake Pod back another week. It is October 6th. It's October 6th. Unbelievable that we're already here, almost knocking these previews. We're past the halfway point, starting to get into some of these final previews. How are we feeling, boys? After the weekend and just another month. 30 days away, 28 days.
Yep. Good. Brewers look good so far, and my Jags ticket's covering. So hopefully going to be a good night.
My Jags ticket's covering, he says. Elliot, how are we feeling? Chiefs, do you have a Jags ticket?
Do I have a Jags ticket? No. Hell no. I don't bet on my teams. Don't bet on my
team.
You
just always bet against them, and it'd be double happiness.
No, it's called an emotional hedge, and I do not do that. Do not bet on my team. Do not bet against my team. I just feel like then you're rooting for the other team if you bet against your team. So it's just one of those things where I just avoid it, and I just watch the game and enjoy it. So we'll see what happens in these last 13 minutes. Hopefully we can put together a short little drive here. Actually, put the ball in the end zone. Patrick's not going to throw another 100-yard pick six interception where we get a 14-point swing in the span of 25 seconds.
A 99-yard touchdown, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Yes, football's upon us. Baseball's upon us, of course. I'm rooting for the Cubs as a Cubs fan. I have Chiefs money line in a parlay, and I did hit Travis Kelce, though, first touchdown. And I may or may not have put a certain chunk of change on it, a little more than a normal, like, quarter unit I do on any time or first touchdown. So it was a good hit tonight, and the Chiefs just tied it up.
Thriller.
Imanaga is horrible, and we're here live on the Atlantic 10 CAA preview. Everyone for tuning in, thank you. We are the @PumpFakePod. This is Elliot Money @IM_money with a capital E and a few other letters in between. Trevor @Stooley Picks, absolute OG. Been rocking this thing since the beginning of time. And then it's me @Michael_Huffer3. So we are the Pump Fake Pod. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in live. Feel free to join us, haze us in the chat, and then if you're watching on the recording, feel free to haze us in the comments as well too. I know I've been a victim of a couple of those things, but we got thick skin here at the Pump Fake Pod for sure. Atlantic 10, CAA, I feel like they're kind of similar conferences. How are we doing? How are we feeling about these two? Personally, A10, always one of my favorites.
Yeah, A10 is always a blast. Should be again this year. Nothing new for A10 basketball.
And CAA?
Oh, the CAA. Yeah, I like the CAA. I don't mind it. I don't discriminate against college hoops. I welcome any and all.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for definitely the A10 50th year, 50th anniversary. We had a 55th anniversary for the MEAC, I think, last week we were talking MEAC. Now we're talking about the 50th year anniversary of the A10, so celebrating that. But yeah, man, A10 always fun. CAA, always fun. We'll see some transfers coming from the CAA to the A10 and a couple other, as Chris points out, some other Northeast hoops that we've already talked about in terms of the Iona, Merrimack. You got a lot of transfers coming from those ranks in the NEC up there and all that coming to A10. So it's a nice little Northeast basketball podcast right here.
All things pretended like they started in the Northeast, but basketball was passioned in the Midwest. So yes, Crutch, thanks for tuning in. Northeast hoops, baby, let's roll. What up, dude? Thanks for tuning in. Looks like the chat's popping. Got a few live viewers. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Again, we're at the Pump Fake Pod. Make sure to like and subscribe and haze us in the comments. We're going to go ahead and dive into the A10 first, and then we'll go into the CAA. If you're new here, we go alphabetically in order. Each team, give our predictions, talk about everything else, and in between. And then we'll give our whole conference prediction preview at the end. We'll have timestamps for the recording if you ever want to go back. So we'll be talking every college basketball team before the end of March, as the last week of March will be dedicated to some other futures and previews. And then we'll get rolling in November for all of our conference or all of our bets and go over the entire slate for Monday, November 4th.
Did you say last week of March or did you say last week of October?
Sorry. I guess that's just a force of habit. I love the month so much.
We're ready for March Madness already, baby.
Already ready for it. Yes, October's. It's like a Halloween. We'll do some Halloween specials. It'll be great. And Springfield, Massachusetts, home of basketball. Yeah, whatever. I don't know about that. We'll see. History books, whatever. I don't know about that. We'll see. We'll see. Show me whether there's a Hoosiers book or a movie about Joe, whatever, Dr. Naismith. But no disrespect to Dr. James Naismith. We got obviously a Chiefs fan here. He's dialed into the Chiefs-Jags game. We got a Cubs fan, Milwaukee, or we got a Cubs fan and a Milwaukee fan. But we could care less because we get to talk A10 hoops. And one of my favorites and one of the most famous alumni, Stephen Curry, his alma mater of Davidson Wildcat, Davidson, North Carolina, last season, 17-16. I'm surprised by that, by the way. I thought they were very bad, but this stands out. 6-12, finished 12th, one returning starter for Matt McKillop, 48-49 under his 3 years. So son of Bob McKillop, who was at the school for so long, coached Steph Curry, and then some great Davidson teams that were in multiple different conferences, was always a proven winner. And now Matt, trying to fill the shoes of his father, little nepotism, but he was under the system for the entire time. It's always the right call, and we see it a lot in college basketball. And before we get into it, Chance D, thanks for tuning in, man. Stoked the tail at the beginning of the season. Let's go. Yes, going over all the teams, so you'll have all the information. And again, one returning starter for Davidson, so maybe it is a good thing. As one of them goes to Indiana and Reed Bailey, so excited to watch him and be a Hoosier. So it sounds like they're kind of excited for the staff. I don't really know if I'm super high on this Davidson team yet again. I mean, their system, their program, it works. They kind of slow you down. They like to drag out possessions and really like use a lot of motion offense just to find that right shot and and be kind of pass first, unlike the run and gun style that we see. So I think that system could still work, but I think they're going to continue to need to work, especially in the A10, finishing 6-12 last year. Now you're going to go to be maybe an improvement, but it's going to be a small improvement, that's for sure. So, yeah, I think I think Davidson's kind of going to plateau just like they did last season and finish kind of at the bottom half of this Atlantic not-so-10 conference.
Yeah, biggest thing for me, I think, is I think they've kind of laid the groundwork, hiring Steph Curry as the assistant general manager for basketball operations there. So in the terms of NIL and the portal, I think that's a fantastic hire for them, is to kind of create him being the assistant GM right there. So I think in the future, definitely going to be one of those things to watch out for, especially because they also kind of laid an 8-figure deal for the NIL for men's and women's basketball there at Davidson. So good things are on the horizon. This year, they brought in a lot more bigger transfers than you'd expect out of a Davidson team. I know you had mentioned Reed Bailey going to Indiana. They also lost Bobby Durkin to Minnesota as well. But they bring in 4 kind of guys from higher majors, or 2 guys from higher majors, and then 2 solid guys from the mid-major ranks. Sam Brown came from Penn, averaged about 14.3 rebounds, 2 assists. And then Josh Scovins came from Army, 15 points, 4 rebounds, and an assist. Kind of a do-it-all player, kind of stat stuffer, if you will. And they also brought in Parker Fredrickson. He's from Wake, kind of played a small role there at the Power 5-0, but they're excited for him. And then J.K. Roberts, another guy that played the Power 5 role there at Vanderbilt, but again, played a very small role. So while this first year, I think I don't necessarily think, if a lot of people forget they were pretty good there kind of towards the end of February, and then they ended up losing like 6 out of the last 7 in the A10 to kind of drop to where they were. So I almost feel like this is kind of a middle of the pack team. I think they're going to take a little not finish near the bottom like they did last year, and I'm excited for what's on the horizon. Maybe not this year, but here in the next couple of years, 2-3 years from now, I expect them to kind of be up near the top of the A10 potentially, if everything goes well with all the moves that they're making business-wise as well.
Yeah, I really can't add too much of what you guys, talked about. I mean, they lost 85% of their scoring. They got a lot of freshmen and newcomers in the transfer portal, so don't really return much of anybody from last year's team. But they got those 4 really good, potentially really good transfers that if they mix, that could be really good. But there's a lot of new guys still on this team overall and a lot of young guys. So if the 4 transfers aren't working or whatnot, it's going to be tough given that they're the majority of their depth left is going to be younger players. So I think they'll be fine. If McKillop was going to make an improvement, I think it would be with this lineup, given the potential they have. But he's just kind of always been around 500 in this since he's got here. So, I mean, if they mesh, it could be one of his better years. If not, it could be a really, really bad year for McKillop.
Yeah, I'd have to kind of agree somewhat in the middle between you two. I mean, yeah, I mean, the transfers mentioned were solid, but I just think they kind of lack talent compared to this conference, just stacking up to other players on other teams. So, their system, though, works with tons of role players, not necessarily being the guy versus a bunch of A guys, which I think can work, especially in college basketball, with how systems kind of work. But it always doesn't lead to just, flashy style play. So we'll see some old-fashioned basketball for Matt McKillop taking over his dad in the Davidson Wildcats. So any final thoughts on Davidson, guys? Looks like their ceiling's the middle of the floor here, or middle of the pack in the A10.
Yeah. One thing I was going to add, but just before we had hopped in, it's the A10 is going to be a little. There's a lot of turnover as there's going to be, in the portal era, but only 2 of the 18 all A10 players are back from last year. So something to kind of keep out for as we kind of dig in and dive deeper into all 14 of these teams. And it's 14 rather than 15 because we had just talked about UMass making that transition. So now we're back to 14. So they're slowly making their way back to 10.
Yeah, welcome to the MAC UMass. Check out the MAC episode. I can't remember what was the other one. It was MAC and something else. But yeah, we did a MAC episode recently. Dayton Flyers out of Dayton, Ohio, last season 23-11, 12-6 in the A10, tied for third. 2 returning starters, and then Anthony Grant, 172, 83, 8 years. So there's always been kind of winners at Dayton, no matter the coach. They constantly have been a solid team. I like what Anthony Grant kind of does. I mean, they were underwhelming at home last year. It's not your normal powerhouse and a tough environment to play. And I think their backcourt is kind of going to be a major improvement. I think that's where they lacked physicality, toughness last year, and we saw them kind of get picked off once they crossed over half court. And really just couldn't fight in transition against some of these teams, and definitely not the physicality of some of those other teams as well. And teams are going to mention with some of those players still and the same coaches, all with their kind of style of play that I think is going to continue. So they're going to need to be able to get more physical, which I think they did, and their backcourt's going to get beefed up. Saw some weight improvement. So love seeing guards getting beefed up in the offseason, coming in strong to the fall, and it's always a good jump maybe for their shot, and definitely the physicality, like I mentioned. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited for this Dayton team. I think they're always going to be great. They bring in a couple transfers as well. Bryce Hurd from NC State, Deshane Montgomery from Georgia, and then you got Jaron McKee as well too, who they signed from Philadelphia as a freshman, son of Aaron McKee, Philadelphia 76ers legend, on the championship team with Allen Iverson. So, yeah, I like this Dayton team. I like the young guys that they have, and I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, as always, as they are, especially after kind of an underwhelming year last year, just not really as intimidating as they normally have been. but that's kind of what these seasons are for, especially when you're still gelling. You bring back 2 starters, so there's some continuity. And now that they're kind of going to beef the mold up a little bit, I think we're going to see Dayton just still back on top and even making strides to win this entire conference in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, Dayton's Dayton. Anthony Grant's been really damn good. I mean, last year was their worst defensive year in 7 years, and they were still pretty damn good. I mean, I know they didn't win the conference or anything, but they're still damn good. So I think they can. I think they're going to really improve from that. I mean, they got a lot of elite guards, which I really like in basketball. As long as you got guard play that can dish it, score it, hang on to the ball, not give away free possessions. It's going to be huge, but how are you going to use 4 of those guys? I'm just kind of interested to see the rotations they'll use, but I think their defense will be better. Dayton will be Dayton again, and I think they'll find themselves contending right at the top for the A10, like every other year under Anthony Grant.
Yeah, I agree. That was one of my biggest points that I was going to bring up too, Trevor, was just the fact that they took a big drop defensively last year, and I think that's kind of where Huff got in that, the not as physical, or have as much physicality on that team like they did. Hard to do that when you replaced Deron Holmes from the year previous. But yeah, I like a couple guys that they brought back. Javon Bennett. He's a solid guard that you were talking about, Trevor. He also gets paired again with Jordan Durkak. He came from Rutgers. Those two actually played together at Merrimack. So 2 guys that know each other well there in the backcourt. So I would expect for them to really kind of hit it off there in the backcourt and kind of pair well together. So those 2 are guys that I think you should definitely look out for. Another guy, Adam Nije from Iona, another solid piece that averaged 12.5 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists. I think he's also going to be a guy for Dayton that they're going to rely upon heavily. And then the other starter who came back from last year was Amal Latang, and he kind of didn't start at the very beginning of the year, but as the year progressed, he slowly made his way into the starting role there in the A10, specifically during the conference play. And he averaged 7 points, 4.5 boards. So I see him taking a big step up too. So excited for a lot of the pieces that they have brought back, but also some of the pieces that they came in and got in the portal. Another one, Keontae Jones from Cal State Northridge, kind of a guy that got real late, averaged 13 points, 9 rebounds, 4.5 assists, shot about 40% from the clip from the 3. So just another guard. He's 6'6" guard too, so should fit good in the defensive philosophy of Anthony Grant. So yeah, looking forward to seeing what he can do and the steps they can take to maybe get back on that more of a defensive-minded track.
Yeah, especially at home. I think it's so necessary. They do have a competitive non-con schedule. Bethune-Cookman obviously mentioned, but Cincinnati, Marquette, Georgetown, Virginia, Florida State. I mean, they're playing competitive teams in the non-con. So yes, definitely a good call out by Raymond Burrows in the chat. Thanks, Raymond, for tuning in. I think they're constantly fed off that early energy that they need in the November-December stretch to translate to the A10. But even with that underwhelming season last year, they still managed to be 12-6, top 3. So I don't think they're going away anytime soon. And I'm going to enjoy seeing the improvements, like I mentioned, especially in the backcourt and front court. So top half of the A10, of course, for these Flyers flying high in Dayton. I don't think Anthony Grant's on the hot seat. Duquesne Dukes, not out of Dayton, Ohio, but last season 13-19, A10, 8-10. Finished 9th, 2 returning starters, and Drew Joyce, who was on LeBron James's high school team, and now is in his 2nd year. So he finished 13-19. They're obviously out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they are the Dukes. But man, they were kind of a feisty team at times. I felt like they lacked both sides of the ball. I mean, defense was their main cup of tea, and talk about physical. They definitely tried to force you down to the last possession, and then you also bring back Cam Crawford as well too. So transfer from Marshall, he's coming back this year, and then also returning to the lineup is Jacob I can't pronounce that name, but he's from Czech Republic, so apologies there to Jacob. But he's definitely a big force down low, a lot of blocks, a lot of rebounds. And then you also bring back a solid 6-man last year in David Dixon, 5 points, 7 points per game off the bench. Another big guy, 6'9". So you bring some experience to this Duquesne team that I think they may have a little improvement this year. And I kind of like what Drew Joyce was coaching. I mean, we kind of were dogging him early in the year, and I think that was a little unfair, and he really did find his stride. I mean, 8-10, nothing to write home about, but it's in a first-year coach with not the best talent. It's definitely a solid start to a tenure. And then also you got Brandon Hall, who's coming in from Howard, who didn't get to play last year, a 6'4" guard. So another senior added to the bunch. So tons of seniors. I'm excited for this Duquesne team. I think they're definitely going to take the step in the right direction. And I mean, just 2 years off of their improbable run and beating BYU in the first round after winning the A-10 tournament. So this Duquesne team's a little interesting. I think they definitely could be feisty in the A-10 this year to finish in that top half, maybe around the middle portion of the A-10, of course, but certainly at the top half of that.
Yeah, I agree, Huff. I think, it's one of those things where he had some big shoes to fill, especially with Duquesne coming off that remarkable run, finishing 25-8, 25-7, something like that there the year before, upsetting BYU, like you said. I just think, in a first year, the expectations were really high after a team finished like that, for him to come in and have instant success. But, you saw all over the course of the first year, he steadily improved. And made great points on the returners. Another returner, I'll kind of shout out Maximus Edwards. He was at George Washington before. He's kind of a high-volume three-point shooter. K-State actually recruited him. He was redshirted at K-State his first year, and I wish that he would have stayed because I like the way he played. He's a kind of a streaky scorer, but when he heats up, he can really put the ball in the basket. And then they brought in a couple guys in the transfer portal. Jimmy Williams from UCF averaged about 7.5 points, 2.5 rebounds. Terrence Ginyard from UT Martin was a all OVC selection last year, averaging 16 points, 4.5 rebounds, two assists. So he's another guy that I think would bring instant offense and just an instant impact to that Duquesne team. And then the other guy I'll shout out is the all-traveling man, their biggest guy that they'll have, 6'11", 260, John Hughley. He's kind of made the world tour, started at Pitt, then went to Oklahoma, was last year at Xavier, and now he's at Duquesne. So not much really to say on him. I don't really like the way he plays and how slow he is defensively. But just funny that, we're getting these people that are playing for, 4 teams in 4 years, 5 teams in 5 years, things like that.
Yeah. I kind of like this Duquesne team. I know they weren't too hot last year, but they got 10 returning guys on this roster. So, I mean, half the rosters played together. Then they got 8 newcomers. So, I mean, that might take some time for them to figure everything out. But when over half your team comes back, I tend to think that's a positive coming into the next year. Defense was a struggle. Yeah, that's what they want to focus with. And if you got over half your team back, they're going to remember, your philosophy and what you expect. So I think it'll improve as these guys also get older and more experience. So I like Duquesne. I think they take a significant jump this year in the A-10, given some of the new guys and overloaded rosters and bottom feeders in this conference.
Yeah, they're going to be a force down low. I think they're definitely have a good size advantage, as we mentioned. I mean, I'm excited about this team. I think that's going to be a huge advantage that a lot of people just don't really normally have. So now that Drew Joyce kind of familiar with the schemes and maybe other coaches as well and what they've developed with other teams, maybe not the rosters just because of the turnover so much, but definitely familiar faces. They'll have some familiarity, some rapport to go into and have a little more experience and improve on the 13-19 season from last year. Duquesne Dukes, pump fake pod, a little higher on them. All right, the Fordham Rams out of Bronx, New York. Last season, 12-21, 3-15. Finished dead last in the A-10 with only 3 wins, 0 returning starters, and Mike McPio coming in for a first-year coach out of the Bronx. So a whole new brand, a whole new look after the Fordham fired Keith Ergo last year after his 3 years at Fordham, and definitely had some wins. So now McPile trying to come in. He did take the UC Riverside team to 20 win seasons. So he definitely is a proven winner. And then you also bring in some transfers from Eastern Michigan. You also have Jace Howard, son of Juwan Howard, going to this team as well, to the Bronx, and Hawaii transfer and Akira Jacobs. So some solid players coming in. I know there's definitely some other transfers too that actually had some big pieces. So McPile definitely who's already familiar with the transfer portal, got to come in, get his own rebrand for the Rams, and get a winning team in the Bronx, because the Yankees can't do it. So I like this Fordham team, actually. I mean, you're going to take a jump, hopefully, from 3-15 wins. And I think we're going to see some beginner's luck here in the first season. But maybe not the best team or the top half of the A10, but definitely a jump up from last season being dead last, and just for the new brand and McPio.
Yeah, I think McPie will be fine after a while, or a couple years, but I don't think this is the year. No returning starters, and then they did get 6 foreign guys, so I mean that could be good. Playing a different style, a lot of people aren't used to, but communication and just learning how to play together with that many guys that are from different countries could hurt them. He also said they lack size, and that defense is going to be a struggle for them. So I mean, if you got a brand new team, you can't defend. You're still going to have to work on things on the offensive end. I think it's going to be a real struggle for Fordham. I think Magpie can definitely get them over 3 wins in the A10. He's good enough, but I don't think this Fordham team does a whole lot of anything this year. I think they finished with 4 or 5 wins in the A10. So, I think they'll kind of be similar to last year, but I think there's a chance that they can jump up a spot or two from where they were. But do not like this roster. What Magpie's got. So I think give it him a year or two, he'll be fine. He'll be making noise in the A10.
Yeah, I certainly think that they can make noise this year, and just maybe he will be able to improve in the front court a little more. But yeah, you may be right. A little kind of stale roster, maybe some hiccups early on just with the rebrand. But the transfers mentioned were solid. I know there's a couple more out there that Elliot can take over and mention here as we close out the Fordham Rams conference preview or team preview.
Yeah, no, Coach McPile, he's a guy that I really like. I respect him. He's one of those guys that he actually was a CEO of a real estate company in California, and because he wanted to coach basketball, he ended up resigning as the CEO. Took don't you want to know, probably over $1 million pay cut to become the assistant coach at Columbia, making $40,000 a year. So just shows you the passion, the heart he has for coaching college basketball. So I really respect him for, not following the money, following his heart and doing what he wants to do. So it's awesome to see him rewarded, being able to, coach at UC Riverside and now head coach there at Fordham in the A10 a little bit. I would say a higher level in the Big West. But, he goes from recruiting in LA. Now he's got to recruit to the Bronx. So we'll see how that changes. Biggest thing that I bring back with Fordham is, they lost Jackie Johnson. He averaged 19.5 points a game last year, led the A10 in scoring. So that's definitely going to be somebody that they're going to miss this year. And as it is, when you bring in a new coach, you're going to have a roster turnover, and they overhauled the entire roster. Another guy from Hawaii, Marcus Green, he averaged about 7.5 points a game. He'll join Akira Jacobs from Hawaii. You got Christian Henry coming from Eastern Michigan. He started all 32 games last year, averaged about 14.5 points a game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, shot about 37% from the 3. And then another guy that I'm kind of high on is DeJour Reeves from Iona, averaged 17.3 points a game, 5.5 rebounds, shot 34% from the 3. So I think those two guys are going to be, or he in particular is going to be, him and Henry are going to be guys that are going to take over kind of the scoring duties for losing out on Jackie Johnson. And so, while I see that maybe they might not make significant strides in the first year. I do expect him to kind of lay that foundation, get the pieces that he needs to be successful, as was shown at his time at UC Riverside, having those 2 straight 20-win seasons. So,
yeah, the future is bright for Fordham. We'll see what they can do in 2025-26. Talk about bright. Last year, George Mason Patriots out of Fairfax, Virginia. Last season, 27-9, A10, 15-3, which got a conference win. 1 returning starter, and for 2 years for Tony Skinn, 47-21, 2 20-win seasons in a row. In his first year, he kind of played in the transfer portal a little bit. Second year, 5 returning starters come back. Just goes to show you what continuity can do. We talk about continuity a lot. It's a fun word when we do these conference previews, especially with the transfer portal. And that's what happens. You win the conference. You have a 16-game winning streak last season or something like 15 games, something like that. You have an A10 title, an NIT appearance. So a solid second year for Tony Skinn, but now it's kind of a rebrand. As you lose Jalen Hayes to Cincinnati, you lose A10 Defensive Player of the Year, Jared Billups last year, and then also Darius Maddox goes. But you do bring back Braden O'Connor, who averaged 9.1 points per game and was a 38% three-point shooter, which is always important. So he's a senior. Stas Sifka is back, a little tall guy that can provide some stuff down low. And then you bring in transfer Corey Mincy from Presbyterian, who averaged 15 points a game. And then Jeremiah Hill, also from Ball State. So, that's a good pickup. I mean, talk about good roster, talk about just solid school. I think that's a great pickup. And for those that don't know, I'm a Ball State grad. Masai Troutman as well, 6'5" senior. And you bring in Malik Presley from Vanderbilt. So they bring in talent, even though they lose a ton of talent. So I think with the system and Skinn being able to work with what he's got, he's going to be able to work this talent. Definitely going to be a step back just from how successful last season was. But we know George Mason, solid program, always been a winning program from Jim Larinaga all the way to Tony Skinn this year. So I think it's definitely going to be a good season for the A10 in George Mason, but not like we saw last year.
Yeah, George Mason. I mean, yes, they lose almost everybody, but this is similar. This year's gonna be similar to like his first year, where he had to also just hit the portal and get completely brand new players essentially too. So he hit on those guys. They stuck around last year, and they were a pretty good team last year, I'd say. So I mean, if he hits again in the portal here, he could have another really good team, but definitely not a team that's going to be contending for first place. Well, I shouldn't say they shouldn't be. I mean, anything could happen, but I don't think they're going to be finding themselves up there hanging around first place with the George Washingtons and Daytons of the conferences here. But I don't hate them. I think they're going to be fine. I know they lost, he said 90% of production, so that's brutal, but he's had success in the portal before. He knows what he wants, and he got that the last time and managed to keep them around. So if he finds another good crop of kids, this could be a good team too. But I don't think, again, they're going to be up with the George Washingtons or Daytons of this conference this year. But still a solid year from Tony Skinn and the Patriots.
And they're going to press the shit out of you. So he's transferring in a bunch of athletes that can be able to kind of not run and gun on offense, but run and gun on defense and really force you to make passes, bad passes, and they run that solid full court press. Tony Skinn, great ball coach. Elliot, round us off.
Yeah, the big the one returner that they did bring back was point guard Braden O'Connor, so I think a lot relies on him. Averaged 9 points a game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, shot about 38% from 3. So he's a guy that Tony Skinn's going to heavily rely upon. And I think, Tony Skinn's a great coach. He's going to kind of get the job done. I don't see a 27-win season like they were last year. And are they going to be as good as 15-3 in the A10? Verdict's still out on that. But, I wouldn't put it past Tony Skinn to be able to figure out how to grind out wins there in the A10 like we saw last year on that 11-game win streak. He preaches defense. And so, as we've talked about, defensive teams can win a lot of games. They can win championships. That's kind of a key to the success is having a great defense. And they're going to test themselves early. They have, I think they go to two Virginia Tech trips, and then they also go to Marquette and to Duke. So he's not shying away with the competition. So these newcomers that come in, he might, be really testing them to begin with, and you might see some early season struggles, but I think it's just only going to prepare them and get them ready for conference play. So I would expect this team to just take strides as the season goes along. And I agree with Trevor. They're not going to be maybe at the top again, but I don't see them falling. I see them as low as probably sixth if we're talking like floor ceiling type stuff.
Yeah, all of us high on Braden O'Connor. I think just Tony Skinn, what he brings, we're excited about him, and good call-outs by the non-conference. Definitely some battle-tested stuff there. So, hey, you never know. George Mason, always a good program, and always a program that we can root for. I really like this Mason team and the talent that they brought in. So I'm not necessarily worried about the new talent, and Skinn's going to be able to work with what he got. And like Trevor said, he knows what he wants. He gets what he wants, and that's what he's done in the portal. So continued winner. Let's see if he can continue that for George Mason. So, yeah, maybe a step back from first. We'll have to see. Tune into the A10 predictions at the end of these previews.
It's speaking of one of the guys that he brought in. I don't know if he was mentioned, but Dola Adebayo averaged 13 points, 7 rebounds a game at Mount St. Mary's last year. Actually won all-tournament MVP there at the MAAC. So speaking of, oh my God, they called out interference. But speaking of Northeast Conference basketball, you get that player from the MAAC, and I think he's going to be another guy that plays a factor.
Emmanuel Kang's also top 200 freshman in the country going to George Mason. Always exciting to see. So he's representing Fairfax, and Skinn not only going into the portal looking for experience and maybe like a sophomore or junior in the portal, but also getting recruits and bringing in a few recruits to George Mason as well. So always nice. What the hell? Oh my gosh. Wow, Elliot. Sorry. George Washington, the Revolutionary Colonials. Yep. We're taking both last names. Out of Washington, D.C. Last season, 21-13, 9-9 in the A10. But 3 returning starters under Chris Caputo, 52-46, 3 years there. So, Caputo, definitely a good coach. He's worked with what he's got. First year was kind of a test, and now he's won the last 2 years. So this George Washington team, though, bringing back 3 returning starters, we talk about that continuity word, and now we have it. And they're one of the teams returning the most starters. I think it's going to be a really good year for George Washington. We saw them go in streaky at times. They would go on win streaks, go on losing streaks, which was always important, or which was always just like very volatile and based on how they kind of shot the ball. I felt like they would go, again, be streaky with shooting the ball, but now the familiarity with each other is all very good. So bringing back Trey Autry as well, son of Adrian Autry, so basketball legend for Syracuse. And let's see, bringing back a ton of different players, Christian Jones, Trey Moss, who had ankle injuries last year. So he may work into the rotation. And then you also bring in a transfer in Trey Deakins from Duquesne, familiar with the A10, who averaged 13 points a game last season. And, Caputo did mention that he may not be able to fit in the system, just how the play was with Duquesne. But I think he'll be just fine with the talent that he has. And then you also bring in a transfer, Gene Aaron Gurin from Hofstra, who 14 points a game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. So he's going to be able to make an impact right away. And I'm going to shout out one more transfer that you bring in Boo Boo Benjamin, 6'7" junior from Tarleton State. So I'm telling you, this team's got a lot of depth and a lot of talent for this George Washington team. I really like this. I really like this George Washington team. I think they're going to be dangerous down low. They're going to challenge themselves as well. They play Florida, USF, McNeese State, Middle Tennessee, Murray State. So they're playing good teams in the non-con. I think that's going to translate really well, and they're going to improve on that 9-9 record and finish higher than tied for 7th. So I think this team's got a lot of talent, and it's a team that always gets kind of slept on, and they always proceed to be well and always bring in talent with the DC pipeline, Virginia pipeline, Maryland pipeline, all that nonsense. So I think this team analytically is high. A lot of analytical guys that we all mention on these gambling podcasts has George Washington just as high. So yeah, give me the Colonials to be a solid team who finished only tied for 7th, but had 21 wins. And now you bring back 3 returning starters. The ceiling's 25 wins this season for the Colonials.
Yeah, I'm huge on George Washington, George Washington too. I mean, 3 starters. You return your top 3 scores also, and you got 7 guys that score double digits. So they've got multiple starters in multiple positions across this lineup. So they got plenty of guys to come in off the bench, whether he wants to do like hockey shift change type of substitutions or just piece by piece. He has the ability to do both, and still have all 5 players just be really damn good on the floor at all times. So big fan of that. Absolutely deep roster, and they improved from 6 wins last year, and they bring back a fair amount of guys that were on that team and their top players. I think they make it a improvement into. I think their ceiling is winning the A10 this year, big time.
Yeah, no, I think you guys said most of it at least. One thing I'll recognize is Garrett Johnson, probably their best player, or was going to be their best player last year. Ended up tearing his ACL in June of last year before the start of the season, so he's actually going to be back for them. So if you think about that, you have a guy that was expected to be the best player that wasn't even on the team, that won 21 games last year, and now you get him back. So one of those things where I think that he's definitely going to be able to, it's going to be, high expectations. So can Caputo, be able to perform and exceed those expectations or hold up to those expectations. So like you guys said, they should be at the top of the conference, but you got to get it done.
All right. Pumping high on the Colonials. LaSalle, one of the big 5 out of Philadelphia. Last season, 14-19, 5-13, tied for 13th, 0 returning starters, and you bring in a West Virginia alumni, Darius Nichols, who played with the Devin Ebanks team and Deshaun Butler and Joe Mazzulla team. So now you bring in Darius Nichols, who's been in the system and understands the job at hand, as LaSalle has not had a winning season in over 10 years, which has always been a good program. I mean, they have a lot of history, but only one NCAA tournament appearance since 1992. You have a Sweet 16 visit on that, though, at least. And we always remember Darius Garland or not Darius Garland, but I think it was Isaiah Garland. I can't remember. He was a dog for LaSalle. Someone needs to look that up. But your whole roster is different. 0 returning starters, so a whole new rebrand for the Explorers, as you only bring back reserve Eric Acker, who was just a reserve. So, but you do bring in Noah Collier from William and Mary, a school we'll be talking about on the CAA. And then he had an injury, so he was out all last season last year, and so he'll be fresh, ready to go. But it is that Achilles injury, so maybe not fully 100%. And then you have Justin Archer from Georgia State, so he's going to add some size there. Bowen Beatty from Sacramento State, 7 foot, a freshman that's 6'10". And then Jaden Johnson from Old Dominion, Jaden Marshall from Niagara. So I mean, he went portal, and Darius Nichols was not afraid to go portal, and that's for damn sure. And tons of availability, especially in the front court. And, I really like this LaSalle team. I think it's definitely going to be a hurdle. It's going to be a project for Darius Nichols, but I think he knows what's going to be at hand here and what he has to do to get LaSalle back into the win column, at least in the conference and in the NCAA as a whole. So, yeah, I think the Explorers will be flirty, but and a little dangerous at times, but too much streaky and volatility. They need to get some continuity together and familiarity on the floor. Tyrone Garland, Jovan, let's go. Let's go, Jovan. Shout out, Jovan. My man, thanks for tuning in. Never stop exploring. Pretty sure Jovan is a LaSalle grad. Tyrone Garland, Southwest Philly floater. Yep, he had that little dangerous teardrop, the headband. Oh, yes, Tyrone Garland, absolute dog. Thank you, Jovan. How are we feeling about the Explorers, Trevor?
Yeah, I mean, I like Darius Nichols. I think he's going to work out. Only one returning player. The guy didn't really play, like you had said. So, essentially, you got a 100% new roster. But, Darius Nichols had a lot of success at Radford, and he likes to play how he wants to play, and he's got a lot of energy. He's always fired up on the sidelines. And any videos you're seeing of practice and whatnot. So I think that'll light a fire under LaSalle. They're going to play faster. They're going to play a heavy pressure defense. So that classic A-10 Philly defense should be coming back, and they're going to play a lot faster and not be so sluggish and 1900s to watch. So I think LaSalle has the ability to jump up a spot or two in the conference if all goes well, but still an entirely new roster. He's still trying to find the pieces that fit exactly right for the systems he wants and the guys he wants. So I think next year will be a much better year, but I think this year they could jump up a spot or two, just given the new injection of life into the program and Darius Nichols being there.
I got to say this too. Javon and I have known each other, never met in person. Would love to meet you, but we've known 5 years now probably, and I think every year I mentioned, what was that guy from LaSalle? I always forget Tyrone Garland. Always remember Garland, but the first name always forget. So yes, just got done feed there. LaSalle, love LaSalle, love what they bring. Come on, it's the Philly Big Five. Elliot, what do you feel about the Explorers in first year with Darius Nichols?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard for him to replace a legendary coach like Fran Dumpy. But I think he's kind of trying to do the exact thing that he tried to do at Radford, and that's bring in a lot of size and focus on a lot of rebounding. He brought in Noel Collier from William & Mary, and then he brought in a guy from Connor State, D2 at Oklahoma, averaged 12 points, 12 rebounds, Edwin Daniel. So I think he's focusing on trying to just, rebound, translating into wins. And, I just am not quite sure. I know that on the defensive end and on the defensive rebounding side particularly, they're going to be successful. However, I just don't know if that's going to translate on the offensive end to score enough points to keep up with a lot of these teams here in the A-10. So it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting transition year for Darius Nichols coming from Radford to LaSalle. So we'll see. Not too high on them, though, for this year. I don't think it was a bad hire by any means. I just think that it's going to take a little bit of time for him to adjust to the A-10 level and get the kind of pieces, and it might take this whole first year in the A-10 to kind of see, what type of dudes he needs to bring in to be successful, to be competitive in the A-10.
All right, Loyola Chicago, the Ramblers out of Chicago, Illinois, last season 25-12, 12-6. Tied for third. 3 returning starters. Talk about familiarity. Drew Valentine, 83 and 51, 4 years. We kind of shit on Drew Valentine, but that's an impressive record. I just don't like what he does late game scenarios. But you make the NIT Final Four. You've made the tournament a couple times, and then you bring back Miles Rubin, who averaged almost 10 points a game. Kamani Hunasoy as well, 6'7" senior guard. And then Justin Moore, who averaged 8 points per game, who came in that transferred from Drexel. So, I mean, this Loyola Chicago team definitely has talent. Sister Jean, sadly, unable to attend the games this year. So her health, I mean, what a life she's lived. I mean, I think she's like 100-something, right? Or like high 90s. So an amazing life.
She's like 106.
106.
something like that. 103 maybe. It's something.
I mean, they were showing her, and I was like, it's yeah. I mean, but all prayers to Sister Jean, what she's going through, good life to live, and she's seen some great runs out of Loyola Chicago, and I think that she's going to be able to at least see that from the TV or radio, because I like what they bring back, and I like who they have, and I think that they're offensively going to be good. They have one of the better backcourts in the A10, and Drew Valentine knows how to kind of be able to work his backcourt. So, I think discipline, they made a lot of mistakes and errors late game last year. Just felt like they were always kind of shooting themselves in the foot, especially when they would get out into a big lead, or at least somewhat of a lead. So, I like Loyola Chicago. I think they definitely can be at the top half of this bracket yet again and fight for Sister Jean hard. So all prayers to her. And I think Loyola Chicago is going to be a really good team yet again, and under Drew Valentine.
Yeah, I think they're going to be, pretty solid. I mean, return 3 starters and 5 guys that actually played on the team and, got significant minutes. So that's going to be nice, a nice deep roster, bring some guys off the bench that have been in the system and played under him. So that'll be solid. I mean, they got Xavier Amos from Wisconsin. Obviously a great pickup, tough loss for us. Daywil Tavares, the guy coming in from Charleston. But he's just a bucket getter. He got a bunch of buckets, had, I think, 20 double-doubles or something, or double-digit scoring games. I mean, he can get a bucket when they need it. So I think that'll be a huge help, and they added a lot of size and experience from D1 players and even guys that have played in the tournament before. So I think that'll all benefit Loyola. I think they'll have another great year where they'll find themselves, top 3 contending for the A10 potentially if all goes well. But they're definitely a top 5 team in the A10 this year.
Yeah, Sister Jean, she turned 106 on August 21st of this year. So she's 106. But yeah, I think, maybe one last little hoorah for her as she's dealing with some health issues. I think this team can be able to step up and really possibly be in the running to win the A10. I really like Coach Valentine, kind of like what he brings. Big guy that I'm looking forward to kind of really provide a good, solid backcourt for them is Justin Moore. He got injured last year. It was a transfer from Drexel, but I think he's a guy that's going to be heavily relied upon. And I see Drew Valentine making it's hard to say significant strides when you got a 25-12 team, a team that finished 3rd in the A10. But, as Raymond said in the chat, they lost about 7 games in the last 30 seconds last year. So, if you get a little bit of a different variance, you're a little bit luckier than you were last year. Maybe 2 or 3 go your way, and that turns you into, a first-place team. So look out for Loyola this year with some tragic magic coming.
As I mentioned, I mean, that just comes down to discipline at the end of the day and decision-making. So learn from your mistakes. That's what you need to do to win these games. Still won 25 games. I know you went to the NIT, so I think you finished like 19-12 or 19-11, 20-11. So solid year, though, for Loyola. I think it will be again this year. So we are a little high on them in what will be Sister Jean's first virtual year. All right. Rhode Island, the Rams. Talk about volatile. Kingston, Rhode Island, last season 18-13, 7-11 in the A10, tied for 10th, and started the year, I'm pretty sure, 7-0, 8-0. So just again, an Archie Miller locker room that I know for a fact is not a well-led locker room. Not from experience that I've played, but from experience of what happens. 39-55, 3 years for Rhode Island. Even with the talent that they have, there's just some type of this lack of team that just coaches should bring to a team, and I think that's where we see what's problem there. I'm not trying to say he's not a good coach. He has a lot of basketball knowledge. The Miller family's always been good, but I think he just lacks that thing that coaches should bring. There's some things that are intangibles that go unnoticed and in between the lines that we just kind of forget about versus the stats that we talk about and the analytics of things. So I think that he lacks that. First of all, but I think they definitely could be an improvement. We saw them be able to be winners, so there could be something dangerous. They definitely excelled in the non-con last season, stumbled in the A10, finishing tied for 10th, and now it's a completely new look for Rhode Island, which is interesting. So you do have Drisa Traore coming back, couple freshmen, and Damone King and Moke Icky. Miles Corey from South Alabama, and then R.J. Johnson, who played at Holy Cross and Charleston Southern. So definitely some talent. A couple other guys I think that Elliot or Trevor can mention. But, I think this Rhode Island team could be a little dangerous at times. But, again, I think they just lack those intangibles that we just don't talk about much. So we'll see. Like I said, they could be dangerous. They're going to be a heavily presided front court. Miller kind of likes to play that aggressive kind of style down low, and I think that's where Rhode Island won a lot of games last year. So if they can continue that, even with their new little rebuild, they could be able to be flirty in the A10, but definitely back at the middle to lower half of this conference.
Yeah, a lot of new guys, only one returning player. To Archie's credit, they have improved every year he's been there. The last 3 years, I should say. Improved there while he's been there. So they have pieces too, but I'm with you. I don't know if Archie really inspires guys to be that good. I know they had a bunch of
it's tough when you're 5'2" trying to talk to a 6'7", 8".
And getting angry on the sidelines is always hysterical. Just little short guy just losing his mind.
Or when he brings the microphone way down at the IU press conference. That is not AI, by the way.
Yeah, he's a funny guy, but I think they'll be all right. Some of the pieces they brought in aren't the best. They have a decent amount of young guys too. So I'm with you. I feel like they kind of take a little step back, kind of maybe hang around 10th. In the Hill Conference, I'm drawing a blank on this now. A10, damn, A10. Yeah, falling, yeah, kind of hanging around the same spot in the A10 here. Don't expect much from Rhode Island. I don't think this is going to be a team that's really going to pop up on the regular and kind of show improvement. I think they may catch somebody, but I don't think this is going to be like a team you really got to worry about this year.
Yeah, I'm on the contrary here. I like Archie Miller. Huff mentioned a lot of the people that they brought in. A lot of them are graduate transfers, so they brought in a significant amount of people in the portal. However, it's gonna make them one of the oldest teams there in the A10. So I think that experience is gonna be able to get them, near that 500 mark at least. So I expect them to kind of take a little step up here. I think it was a hard year last year just because, like you said, Huff, they started out 7-0, 8-0. I think they ended up going 11-1, actually beating Providence at home. And it was kind of like they almost peaked too early and kind of ended on a high at the very beginning of the season. And then when they really started to struggle there in A10 play, they just couldn't get it back. I don't see that happening this year with a veteran-laden team. A couple other guys that you didn't mention. Tyler Cochran, he's a redshirt graduate transfer, was at Minnesota last year, medical redshirt. He actually was the 2024 Defensive Player of the Year in the MAC for Toledo. And then another guy that I am kind of high upon as well was that guy that you mentioned, another graduate transfer, Miles Corey. I think he's going to be a significant player for them. So they bring in, I think, 3, 4, maybe 5 graduate transfers from different realms. They also bring in another senior from Stetson, who also is going to be pretty good, I think, Alex Crawford. He's a redshirt senior as well. So just shows you, with all the amount of graduate students and redshirt seniors, things like that, they've gotten a lot of experience in the mid majors and even high majors. And I expect them to, be kind of a steady force, not get too high, not get too low. I don't think talent wise is going to put them near the top of the A10, but I definitely don't see them at the bottom. So I do expect Archie to kind of get a season where they're finishing, in that 9-9, maybe 10-8 kind of range here in the A10.
All right, the Richmond Spiders out of Richmond, Virginia. Last season, 10-22, 5-13, tied for 13th. 2 returning starters, and Chris Mooney proven winner. We know Richmond has a winning program. They've been able to upset teams in the NCAA tournament. They've been able to make the NCAA tournament, always been competitive in the A-10, but a major step back for a Chris Mooney-led team. 358 and 290 under 20 years for the Spiders. So I have to sadly say that it's going to be a tough year again, but I think we're definitely going to see a jump back up as well. Just because there is this sense of programs being able to win, and obviously Mooney, proven winner with that record, that kind of transition should always be able to transfer, and it just wasn't last year. But I think this is going to be able to see a little jump and play that Richmond style of play. But I mean, there's also something too about older style coaches not being able to adapt into this portal. So there could be something with that as well. I think they have talent to be competitive. I think they just lack kind of winning a little bit of the games. They'll definitely be an improvement from 13th, but not a major jump here in the A-10 for me, just because they lack, I think, depth and just overall talent, I'll say, versus other A-10 teams.
Yeah. I kind of like this team. They got a lot of size, 2 returning guys on the starting, so that helps. But they got a ton of size. I mean, and then they signed 3 freshman guards that are 6'6". So I mean, if any of those guys kind of hit and can actually play meaningful minutes, that could be huge, given the size advantage that they would have on a ton of guards in this entire country, let alone this conference. So I think they need some of their young guys to step up, but they have a lot of size. They should be way better than 360th in the offensive glass last year. I mean, I expect them to improve. And the last 5 years, Richmond has gone like 14 wins, and then they've gone up to like 21. Then they went to 15. Then they went up to 24. And then they went down to like 14 or 10 last season. So I mean, I think there's a bounce back year coming, and they got a lot of size and a lot of talent, young talent that. If any of them hit, it could be huge for Richmond, and they were terrible from 3, so they can only improve. So I expect Richmond to be better and finding themselves kind of around the middle part, 500 or so of the A-10 here.
Shout out Raymond. Chris Mooney coached my college coach at Beaver College. Yes, we also ran the Princeton offense. Yes, Princeton offense never goes away.
Yeah, it's one of those, a lot of times, you think that you have a bad year and you want to get rid of people. But I think in these types of offenses, when you have that Princeton offense, it's one of those things where even if you have a year, you still want some returning pieces to come back. So it's good to see that they're returning 2 starters from last year, despite the rough season that they had. I honestly don't think it would have been as rough if they wouldn't have lost Delani Hunt. He was their leading scorer. If you remember A-10, they won the A-10 championship the year before. He was the only returner on that team, came back, and I think they lost him in like the 3rd or 4th game of conference play. So the fact that when he went down, I think things kind of unraveled. They lost 17 out of 19, and they just couldn't really find traction again. So 3 guys that I'm looking out for this year. Jaden Daughtry from Indiana State was averaged about 13 points a game, 5 rebounds a game, shot 40% from the 3. Most impressive thing about that is he only did it in 19 minutes. So that just shows the effectiveness and the usage rate that he has. I think he's going to be a guy to watch out for on this Richmond Spiders team. Another guy that was a big kind of get for Mooney, who was kind of the top priority for them, was Will Johnston. Spent the last 2 years at Loyola Marymount. And that guy averaged 12 points, 2 rebounds. Again, shot about a 37% clip from 3. And then the last guy that I'll mention is I just had it. Sorry.
I mean, outside of that too, I mean, you have Chris Mooney, who, I mean, he's been able to have a solid career, and I think they definitely lacked talent last year. But those pieces that you mentioned could be a huge addition to kind of get them over the hump that we saw, just of them getting their ass kicked, plainly.
Yeah, no, for sure. The other guy I was going to mention was AJ Lopez. He's another guy, averaged 15 a game for Maine last year, shot 40% from the 3. So you see, he's trying to fit those guys into that Princeton offense that shoot the 3 at a high clip. One of those things that are, it kind of 6'6", 6'3", 6'5", 6'6" guards, kind of that play that 2-3-4 area, can spot up, hit the three. So I expect them to be a lot better this year than they were last year. I just think they really weren't prepared for that injury to Jelani Hunt, and I think it really derailed them. So I definitely expect them to not necessarily be at the top of the conference, but definitely take a significant step forward from being tied 13th near the bottom of the conference.
And I'll say this, just to sidetrack with the Archie Miller thing, completely agree. They wanted a night guy. They got one, but he was a freaking marketer at best that could just dive into the portal. But anywho, that's another day. See us for the Big Ten, the final conference preview, the second to last, just a week and a half from now. Yeah, Richmond, proven winning program. See what they can do this year in the hurdle up. The Billikens of St. Louis, Missouri, last season 19-15, 11-7, tied for 5th. 2 returning starters under Josh Schertz, who comes in from Indiana State. You lose Robbie Avila, Tyrone Swope, so you kind of lose your pieces that you knew and loved from St. Louis. An easier non-conference schedule, though, with San Francisco, Loyola Marymount, Santa Clara, so no P5 schools on the list, Grand Canyon as well. Schertz is a good team, good program, but man, talk about underwhelming. I think that first year was a major transition. And after just a solid start for Indiana State and that improbable run, just same school colors, it didn't work out. It wasn't as all what it cracked up to be. Ken, my man, thanks for joining us. Yep. Feel free. You know where to find us. Hit the recordings if you want. Because remember, everything, if you're new here, is recorded with timestamps. So we got everything.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he's still there.
He is coming back?
Yeah, he's back, and he's going to be –
Swope is gone, though, right?
Swope's gone, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is still there. He's a preseason player of the year in the A-10.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. I knew Swope was gone. Trying to work off my notes at best. So thanks for the correction. They do have good front court because they also bring in some size as well, which I think is huge. And Kula Anya, who started there last year, so some familiarity. And then you bring in from Paul Otieno, 6'9" senior from Quinnipiac. So, I mean, you have size. I think this is going to be the best front court in St. Louis or in the A-10. So a solid jump, I think, for St. Louis this year, even finishing tied for 5th with just an underwhelming start to the season. I felt they lacked offense. They couldn't guard worth shit even when they were scoring the ball. But yeah, with the solid front court, I think they need to be able to work that in and out game, be able to slow the ball down a little bit more. And I think that'll be their winning recipe for Schertz in the second season. So yeah, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is back. That's great. I like this front court with Avila, and I think they added a couple more pieces that we might be able to touch upon here. And that's going to add some depth to the Billikens. So I like this St. Louis team this year.
Yeah, you mentioned Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I'm just be quick. I mean, they got 2 starters back. Avia's back. He's projected the A-10 player of the year, like Elliot said. But Kellen Thames, the first 4 games, he averaged, 14.8 points and 7.5 rebounds before he kind of just off and on the injury report and never really got into a groove last year. So if he stays healthy, having him back. And then Otieno, he was top 35 nationally in offensive rebounding. So that's huge for Robbie, who likes to get around it and can shoot from all over the floor. And you still have a guy, a big down low, that can at least get rebounds, for kickouts, for wide open shots or whatever else. And you're right. They got a lot of size everywhere. I mean, they got some smaller guards, but they also got some big 6'5s. And 6'9", 6'8" players to pop in and out of. So I think they'll be fine. Yes, their non-con isn't crazy, but Schertz said he tried to get a home-and-home series with the power conference team and just never worked out. So, I mean, playing San Fran and Santa Clara and Grand Canyon are still good games, but nothing like having a chance at a Power 4 school to really boost your resume. But I think they got the talent to do so. I think Schertz is a great coach, and doing what he did last year in the A-10 in his first year, I think He's going to be much better this year. Avia is going to be more prepared, and they got guys back that can help him out, and brought in that big down low to really help out. So I like St. Louis this year. I think they're going to have a really solid year.
Yeah, I mean, you guys said it. Biggest thing that I'll say is, their bench minutes last year, dead last in the country. They're 14.4% of bench minutes played. So they relied heavily upon their starters. I think, when Schertz brought over all those guys from ISU, he really didn't do a good job of getting the depth that they needed to compete at the A-10 level. And then a lot of people forget, but Avila had that ankle injury really at the very beginning of the last season. And I just don't think he was really the same for the first at least couple months of the season, if not 3 months. And
You're right. He couldn't shoot.
And it really took a toll on just the continuity of the team. And I don't think they ever really officially got things rolling. The biggest thing that I look at is, they were first in the A-10 in effective field goal offense, second in effective field goal defense. However, they were 14th in offensive rebounding, and that was brought upon, Trevor just mentioned it. They brought in a bunch of guys, a bunch of size that you guys had mentioned to kind of fill that offensive rebounding void. They were also 15th in turnovers and 15th in forcing turnovers. So he really kind of attacked the portal and really kind of focused on depth and focused on getting a lot of guys that can rebound at the guard position, but also underneath, specifically Otieno there from Quinnipiac on his offensive rebounding prowess. So, I think he did a great job in the portal of getting that depth that's needed to compete at the A-10 level. I think he's a great coach. We saw it at Indiana State. I just think, he was missing that depth, had a couple injuries that he dealt with that you guys had both mentioned. So I expect a very good St. Louis team to take a step up, and I have them in my top 4 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, best front court, I think, in the A-10, up there with like Loyola Chicago, I liked, and then another team that we'll get to here in a second. It's not the Bonnies, though, I'll tell you that. St. Bonaventure, the Bonnies out of lean, throw that lean up in the cup, New York, last season, 22-12. 9-9 in the A-10, another team that started off super hot, tons of wins, and then just faltered and stumbled. But Mark Schmidt, another proven winner, 324 and 238, 18 years at the Bonnies. So he's made NCAA tournaments. He's finished good countless times in the A-10, and he's been able to work with what he's got. And he definitely brings back a solid player who's familiar with the program in DeSante Bowen, 11.1 points per game 2 years ago. Last year he only played 10 games, so he comes back with a broken foot, so comes back with a vengeance as well. You bring in transfer Amari Marshall from Buffalo, Daryl Simmons II from Gardner-Webb, who averaged 18 points a game, Caden Charles from North Georgia, 15 points per game. So having 4 players that flirted with 15 points per game is definitely something impressive or more. I think that they're going to have tons of talent. So maybe one of these teams just sits with only one returning starter in Bowen, and then having to kind of get familiar with each other, starting to get that style of play going. So maybe a stumble at first, and then a surge at the latter half of the season. Just like it'd be the exact opposite of last season, though, for the Bounties. So I think talent-wise, they really lack a ton of size. Backcourt's going to be fantastic, and we know what Mark Schmidt can bring to a college. Coaches matter. He definitely has some good talent, so he's going to be able to have that style of play where the Bonnies run and gun a little bit to be able to compete with these A-10 teams, especially with the size that we've mentioned with other teams. But I like the Bonnies. They're always going to be a good team, middle of the pack under Schmidt. So I think that's just going to be fine. I think there could be a sleeper team in this conference just with all the talent that they bring in. We'll see how they gel mid-season.
Yeah, I think they're going to be fine. I know last year was a little bit disappointing given how high we were on them, but I mean, they've got some guys coming in, and then you said it, DeSante Bowen. They were 9-1 until he got hurt, and then it was just kind of over from there. But now you got another pretty solid guard in Daryl Simmons. He's pretty short, 5'11", but you can still score the ball, and they got some nice bigs down low along with some international flavor. to help them out. And the Russian kid they got averages almost 13 points, 4 boards, 4.5 assists, and almost 2 steals a game in international ball. So I think once those two got there late in August, though, so that is a little bit of a short figured out period, but I think they'll be fine. And then they got this Joe Gravick kid. He was homeless in LA, and then somebody saw him playing and hooked him up with Fullerton. So that's
like
kind of a crazy story.
My player story. Hell yeah. All right.
Yeah. 16 points a game, 6.5 boards, 2 assists, 3 blocks a game. He's solid. And so I think that's going to be huge for them down low. Not to mention all the other bigs that they got and some solid guards out of the portal with Woj. So a lot of size, a roster on paper that looks pretty damn good, having 2 bigs and 2 solid guards that can do it all. So I think St. Bonaventure is going to be solid this year. I think they kind of hang around 7th, maybe take a step up a little bit. But I'm a big fan of this Bonnie's team, what they have on paper. It's just curious how it all mesh together come season.
Yeah, I think they, I'm intrigued by Daryl Simmons II. Came from Gardner-Webb, averaged 17.5 points, three rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, shot about 39% from 3 there at Gardner-Webb last year. I think he's a guy that you can pair with Desante Bowen in the backcourt, and I think they can be kind of an electric backcourt. Trev, you mentioned all of those international guys. I think, Wojbaum himself is going to be a fantastic general manager there, just because of all the connections that he has within the basketball community, especially overseas. So I really expect those guys, to the scouts that he knows, the people that he knows, those players that they brought in, they're well scouted. They know what they're getting. They know that they're getting high level talent. So I expect them to play a significant role for them this year. I do like how you mentioned, they both were only able to get there in August. So I do see, maybe a slower start to the Bonnies. So if we're looking at that, maybe we can get some good numbers on some covers against the Bonnies in the start. But once A10 play comes around, I really expect them to kind of be hitting at all cylinders under Coach Schmidt. And I like the Bonnies here. I think right in that middle to the top third of that of the A10 is kind of where they'll be. It's hard because that top gets really clustered with a lot of talent. So, but I expect them to be competitive, just like you said, Huff.
Sounds like the chat likes the Bonnies. It sounds like we're high on the Bonnies. I'm not high on their front court, sounds like you two are, but definitely high on the Bonnies this year. So, yeah, be interesting for Schmidt. The penultimate team, though, for the A10, St. Joseph's Hawks.
I will say,
go ahead.
I'm not high on the front court. I'm high on the international players. The international players are about a couple 6'5" guys. One from Russia, one from Italy. So I'm not necessarily high on the front court. I think I'm definitely higher on the back court for sure.
You guys mentioned the size, though. St. Joseph Hawks out of Big 5, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Last season, 22-13, A10, 11-7, tied for 5th. Absolute stellar season, I think, just with the little amount of expectations that they had going into the season. And Billy Lang, 81-104, kind of on the hot seat, 6 years there. Had to be able to get some wins there. And now you bring back 2 returning starters, and you bring back a ton of talent. You do lose a ton of talent, though, as well. So you have Derek Simpson, who I know very well from Rutgers, that transferred there last season. So he'll be back for St. Joseph's. And then you also have Anthony Finkley as well, too. 6'7" wing, 235 pounds. Talk about size and girth. He has it all. And he shot 37% from 3-point as well. Ranked 5th in A10 3-point percentage. So, yes, this is a great call. It's not Billy Lang anymore. It is not Billy Lang anymore. So shout out Raymond Burrows with the call out. Something weird happened there last year.
About that.
Completely forgot about that. Making these slides, but you do bring back Desir Hawkins as well, who came off the bench last season, almost averaged 6 points a game. 6'8" guard. You have a 6'7" guard, 6'8" guard. That's insane. So I think. Sorry.
Steve Donahue, head coach.
Steve Donahue, yes, and it'll be his first year, obviously. So, yeah, I think if they can rally behind the situation that happened, avoid the drama, the talent that they have is going to be another competitive team. They always have good rebounding. They've been able to be a good rebounding team in the A10. I think they won those games in the A10 on that alone sometimes, just being able to get those second point opportunities that I think could continue this season, even under Donahue and the new coach for Billy Lang and what he started. So, yeah, something happened, I'm sure. All right, we'll see.
Yeah, St. Joe's. I mean, you lost Eric Reynolds and Xavier Brown. Those are two gigantic losses. They just got to try to pick up out of the portal, which they got two solid guards, but I don't think they're anything that is going to be able to replace what Reynolds and Xavier Brown did for this program. They have a 2-season stretch of winning 20+ games. I don't really know that this is the team to do it. Just given what they lost and Reynolds and Xavier Brown. Now these new guards got to come together and figure it out. I think St. Joe's is going to be a solid team, but I think they're going to be more like an 18 type wins team here. So I'm a little down on St. Joe's this year, but if those two guards mesh, they definitely have the talent to keep St. Joe's hanging around the top 5 of this conference. But I just think this year is going to be a slight step back for Billy Steve Donahue and the new coach factor. So I got them dropping a little bit, but I don't think they're going to be a terrible team at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I know they returned 2 returning starters, but the 3 that they lost, you mentioned Reynolds and Brown, but Rasheer Fleming, 31st pick in the NBA draft last year, averaged 15 a game for him. So, that third piece is definitely somebody that they're going to be missing as well. So I expect them to kind of take a step down in the first year for Steve Donahue here. I know they got a big kind of jump when Justice Aguilar got his extra year of eligibility, kind of 6'10" guy, 260 pounds, like you had mentioned, the girth guy. They're lucky to kind of get his eligibility back for one more season with them. So I think that might help him on the inside. One big guy, I say big guy, but he's actually a small guy, is sophomore guard Deuce Jones, came from LaSalle, averaged 12.5 points a game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, almost 3 assists. He was the freshman of the year last year in the A10. I expect him to take another big step up. He was a significant piece for LaSalle and Dunphy last year, and now he transfers to St. Joseph's where they're needing guard play. So I really think he's going to be one to watch there in the A10. So watch out for him. But I personally think that St. Joe's is going to take a step back here. I think it's almost maybe one of those things where the Bonnies and St. Joe's kind of flip-flop. You see kind of a 9-9, something like that for St. Joe's, and you see an 11-7 for the Bonnies.
All right. Trevor, you got to go at midnight or no show? You do?
Yeah, I got to go. There's baseball tomorrow, but I will say
we got one team left in the A10 though, so we can go through that.
Yeah, I'll just go VCU quick. Phil Martelli's there from Bryant. No changes at all. Stopping playing fast as fuck. They're gonna keep it up. They brought 5 guys back that they really liked and fit their system. Not to mention they got some other size and some shooters out of the portal. Some solid players. So I mean, like, these guys have experience and have played at some of this high mid-major level. So I think they're going to be able to figure it out. Phil Martelli likes to play fast and kind of give the players a little bit of control in that. So I think that'll work out. I think obviously it might take a little bit to adjust to start it, but they've got plenty of chances, playing in the battle for Atlantis. And then they said they were going to NC State, I believe. Yeah, NC State, and then New Mexico and Utah State. So, I mean, they've got some serious challenges. And I think if this team can kind of find themselves hanging around in those games and playing respectable ball, given this is a completely new roster, but Phil Martelli is a great coach. So I think they'll be fine. And Raymond saying VCU is coach proof. They basically are. So I think VCU has a good year. I don't think they find themselves in first place this year, but I think this team can hang around top 5 or 6 in Martelli's first year and kind of just putting some portal pieces in and bringing some Bryant guys with them. I think this will be a decent team. I think they'll find themselves in the top 5, kind of hanging around.
Elliot, we'll go inverse. Take it over.
Yeah.
I'll head out of here. I'll join back in when I'm done.
Yeah, join us back, and we'll go over the A10 predictions. But Trevor does tweets out all of our predictions. Every prediction that we've done, top to bottom, is on our Twitter with logos. So all standing predictions can be found on Twitter and all our recorded episodes. So yeah, see you in a bit, Trevor.
Yes, sir. All right, I'll see you guys.
Pump Fake After Dark. Go ahead, Elliot. VCU.
Yeah, Ryan brings up, VCU's coach proof. This is, Ryan Odom leaving from VCU to Virginia, makes their 6th consecutive coach to go from VCU to a Power 5 head coaching job. So that just shows you the fact that, what Raymond's saying is correct. I think that it might be a little bit of a different stylistically, but Coach Martelli Jr., he brings in a lot of pieces from his team there at Bryant. He also brings in a couple other guys from the CAA ranks. Then he also brings in some high mid-major guys, guy from UConn, guy from LSU, a couple other guys. So it's going to be they're going to be fun. I think that the people that he brought in from the CAA and Bryant are going to be really competitive. They're going to be players that can transition to this level of basketball here in the A10. And I also think that even though those kind of pieces that were at that high major ranks there at LSU, UConn, while they didn't really translate and get to see a lot of court time, I feel like, they're going to be able to show out and show who they are here at VCU. So I expect VCU to be near the top, if not at the top, as they always have been.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you here. I think VCU, coach proof to say the least, and I don't believe it's the 8.5 ABV talking zombie ice. Shout out Three Floyds Brewing in Munster, Indiana. But anyway, I think VCU, no matter what we see, is a solid program. But to see them running fast is just beyond me. I don't know. I know what VCU is, a stout defensive team, likes to grind you out, and just now they're going to be this run and gun team that we saw in Bryant. Wow. Siegel Center is going to be having a treat on offense, that's for sure. Their home court is always tough. One of the toughest places to play in the country. You made some great points about playing Will Wade's team in NC State, New Mexico, Utah State. So some good teams that they play this year. And then you also have Barry Evans, so bringing back some Bryant players to transition over to VCU. So I like this team. Like I said, it's just going to be weird seeing them kind of do this run and gun style. So we'll see if they actually end up doing that. But yeah, Jadrian Tracy from Oregon coming in as well. And then some freshmen and Nick Lewis and Jordan Tillery. So from IMG, you got to love that. And then one of the players you mentioned in Obi Okafor, who is coming off his 2nd ACL tear, so never is going to be the same, sadly, but a 6'9" junior. So solid talent, I think, that's going to have a ton of depth, and these Rams are going to be just as fine at the top half of the A10. So, all right. Yeah, I kind of agree. The hire is interesting, just a different system, what they're known for. So,
100%. I did not. I agree with Raymond completely. I thought they would go with a more of a defensive-minded coach, somebody that kind of fits their system, rather than kind of a total revamp and kind of flip the script. So it's definitely going to be,
there really wasn't many available now at that point. This was one of the better coaches available too.
Yeah, but the guys that I was mentioning, coming back from that high mid-major, Jordan Dumont is coming from Villanova, Ahmad Noel coming from UConn, and then Tyrell Ward coming from LSU, with the addition of Jadrian Tracy that you had mentioned from Oregon. So they got pieces from the high mid-majors, and then they got pieces from Bryant, CAA, kind of that low mid-major ranks. So it'll be interesting to see how all that meshes. And like you said, just the change in philosophy and stylistically for the Rams. But I definitely see the Siegel Center getting up as big of a home court advantage as you could possibly have there in college basketball. And maybe they'll enjoy the fast-paced offensive style of play a little bit.
All right. Got your Polar Pop. I got my beer for my A10 preview. We're going to be jumping into the CAA here in a little bit. Again, this is the Pump Fake Pod. Make sure to like and subscribe. Appreciate everyone tuning in the chat. We're going to go through the predictions, and then we'll run through the CAA. We're going on that. So we like to go bottom up. Not like how we wipe, but we'll go 14th to first. Number 14, Elliot, lead us off for the A10.
I'm going to go with my LaSalle Explorers. They're going to explore the bottom of the conference here.
All right. I'm going to go Fordham at 14th. I think they take a step up. I think we're going to have a solid – sorry?
They are going to take a step up because 15 to 14, that's still a step.
It's a step up, and I think the 14th team is not going to have 3 or 4 wins. I think we're going to see more around the 5 to 7 range, and we're going to see a lot more kind of 500 teams in the middle of the pack versus a top-heavy conference like we saw last year.
Okay. 13 for me, I'm going to go Fordham here. I've got respect for Coach Magpie there, and so I feel like I'm going to give him the say and give him the 13th spot. I'm not going to put him as the cellar dweller, but I just think that, it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be a tough transition year for them.
All right. Fordham's got talent. I do agree, but it's Fordham like we all know and love. 13th for me is Davidson. Not high on Davidson, even under McKillop. I think they just lack talent against some of these other teams.
Yeah, so 12 for me here. I'm going to go with Davidson here. Like I said, I think they're starting in a good way with Curry getting on as the assistant GM there. They've got a good NIL funding that he's starting for the men's and women's basketball programs. I think it's going to be one of those things where they're starting out kind of laying the foundation, and we're going to see kind of the fruits of the labor here in the next 2 years, I'd say.
12th for me is LaSalle. I think they'll be just around the bottom half the entire time, but just catch some fire late under first-year coach Darius Nichols and get a few wins to propel them over the bottom half. I think they'll be 14th and 13th for quite some time.
Yeah, number 11 for me, I'm gonna have Duquesne coming in at number 11.
Number 11 for me is going to be Rhode Island. Little Archie lacks talent. Can coach only for the first couple months of the season.
Number 10 for me, I've got Richmond coming in at number 10.
10 for me is Richmond as well. I think they lack talent, so like we talked about. Good coach, though.
Yep. Number 9 for me is going to be Rhode Island.
9 for me is Duquesne. I'm just kidding. Duquesne. I like Duquesne. I like Drew Joyce, but tough to win games.
Yeah, number 8 for me going to be St. Joe's.
Same spot for me. It looks like we're dead even there. St. Joe's and 8 for me there.
7, I'm going to have Bonnie's, number 7.
7 for me is St. Bonaventure as well. I think they have a lot of talent. Fuck it. I'm going to go George Mason 7th just because we doubled up there twice in a row. And I like these Bonnies. I'm a little higher on them. So we'll go George Mason 7th under Skin.
Okay. I'll go George Mason 6. You can go St. Joe 6.
I already said St. Joe's 8th, but St. Bonaventure will be my 6th.
St. Bonnie's 6th.
Yep.
Sorry.
Very good.
And then I'm going to go Dayton here at number 5.
Okay, number 5 here for me is Loyola Chicago.
I've got Loyola Chicago at number 4.
Number 4 for me, the Dayton Flyers, top 5 team.
Number 3 for me, I've got VCU. Actually, I think people are going to think that they're going to just be able to win out with talent, and I think that they're going to struggle maybe a little bit defensively, just if they're really going to focus on this run and gun style that Martelli Jr. likes to play. So I've got them coming in at 3.
All right, yeah. It's always interesting seeing them transition to a new conference as well. So I'm actually right there with you. I have VCU at 3rd as well. I think they're going to be good, but the volatility of being a streaky offensive team, they need to be able to be a good defensive team. I think is going to be able to, they're always going to be in the top 5, but maybe some familiarity with each other towards that end of the season, making it goes on a little run there. So. Yeah, 3rd, VCU.
2nd, I've got St. Louis. I've got Robbie Avila coming. I think Coach Schertz is going to bring the depth pieces that he was definitely missing and lacking last year. I think it's going to be successful for them. I feel like they're going to be there at the top of the conference, but I just feel like for my number 1, George Washington is who I've got coming out of the A-10. I like them just because of the continuity that they bring back, but also, the fact that they were missing Garrett Johnson, lost Garrett Johnson last year to an ACL, but they get him back and they bring back a lot of the pieces from that 21-win team. So I really expect George Washington to be at or near the top of the conference. So I'm gonna go on a little bit of a limb and choose them at my number 1 spot.
Yeah, I don't think it's a limb at all. I mean, yeah, definitely just a new team. I think they definitely have one of the best talent, and if not the best talent in the A-10. But we'll swap there. I got number 2, George Washington, and number 1, St. Louis. So that's that. I think Schertz can come in and work with what he got and kind of maybe a stepping stone. I know St. Louis is a good program, but you win the A-10, you go to the NCAA tournament, people are going to be looking at you when other P5 programs are on the hot seat. But yeah, I think George Washington definitely the best talented team. We'll see how it translates toward the end. So pretty similar some spots it looks like with our A-10 preview here. That was all 14 teams, top to bottom. I got St. Louis, George Washington, VCU, Dayton, Loyola Chicago, the Bonnies of St. Bonaventure, George Mason, St. Joseph's, Duquesne, Richmond, Rhode Island, LaSalle, Davidson, and Fordham. What you got, Elliot?
Yep, I got LaSalle at 14, Fordham at 13. I really hope that they finish higher. I just want to see it happen. 12, Davidson, 11, Duquesne, 10, Richmond, 9, Rhode Island, 8, St. Joseph's, 7, Bonnies, St. Bonaventure, 6, George Mason, 5, Dayton, 4, Loyola Chicago, 3, VCU, 2, St. Louis, 1, George Washington.
Yeah. VCU is going to win home games, that's for damn sure. But yes, definitely probably some struggle on the road with that style of play. So yeah, kind of similar there on the A-10 preview. This is the Atlantic 10 preview. We are the Pump Fake Pod. That's Elliot Money at I'm_Money. I'm at Michael_Huffer3. This is at Stooley Picks as well. And we're going to be jumping into the CAA preview in 1 second. All right, the Colonial Athletic Association, because we can say Colonial there. We got the Campbell Fighting Camels in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina. last season 15-7, 10-8 in the CAA, with one returning starter coming back and a new coach for John Andrisic. I think I said the name right. Correct me if I'm wrong. Always loved the Campbell logo, and a solid team last year. Well, solid wins in the CAA. They definitely were an exciting team as well. And this is the Colonial Athletic Association, not the Coastal Athletic Association, by the way. So, just know that you can't say that. But you do have Amiri Stewart being able to play from Sacred Heart, who had to sit out last season. And then Enoch Kalambe from Western Kentucky coming in 8.2 points per game. Norfolk State, Chris Fields, 8.4 points per game. And then some size and Daniel Marcinellius coming in from Nigeria. And then Youssef Traore from Mali coming in. So Campbell bringing in some solid size, a decent offense as well too, in the backcourt with one returning starters. And Andrisic has been a proven winner as well too. So I think this Campbell team could be a little flirtatious in this conference. And look out, this may be one of their most talented teams that they've had. And we know that Andrisic can be able to win, and I think this is a great conference for him to prove it first time. Elliot, take us over. I need to run to the potty real quick.
Yeah, no, I'm high on Campbell as well. I think I can't remember. I was just trying to look it up. I was trying to think who was their guy last year that got hurt. And they were having a pretty good season. Maybe the chat can help me, but they were having a really good season. And then he got hurt. I think a lower leg injury, ended up being out for the season. I could be thinking of a different team, but I think that was correct. But yeah, talking about just Campbell as a staff itself, Andrisic, he was able to, come up under Todd Golden. So, kind of the golden tree, as you could say, coming from you've seen the success of the Nate Oates tree and what that's kind of created throughout college basketball. And so maybe this next kind of coaching tree is going to be under that Coach Golden tree. But they bring in, 7 transfers from the D1 level that average 9 points or more. So, it proves your point, Huff, that they bring a lot of talent to this roster. And, with a guy that's got a good coaching pedigree, yes. Thank you, Iveta. Jason Sinani. That's who I was.
Are you mentioning his injury against Hofstra last season?
Yes.
I don't think he tore his ACL, but he tore a lot of ligaments.
Yeah, I was trying to think of who. I mean, he was like their leading guy, and Campbell was playing freaking good, playing great basketball, and then he goes down, and then they kind of fell apart there at the end. But yes, that's exactly who I was thinking of. But in terms of Campbell this year, I think they could be one of the surprises. I wouldn't really call it a surprise since they tied 5th last year at 10-8. I expect them to be in that top 3 in the first year. Usually I'm not one of those guys that is kind of keen to pick a first year head coach to really perform well and be kind of very competitive at the top of the conference. But I think this is one of those times where I'll kind of go away from my natural line of thinking, because I really do think he brought in a lot of good pieces in the portal, and I think he's going to be a good coach that's going to be able to get it done in the CAA, and I really don't see him being in the CAA for very long. Muted.
Talking about him being able to portal, I mean, definitely being able to just dive right in and kind of understand how this works. And we've seen these new age kind of coaches being able to have success in the portal. So definitely something that I want to continue to see the talent of this coach, but also to see Campbell have a winning program. They definitely got robbed last season with last year's injuries, and they had a ton of talent and went on a couple winning streaks. So they'll definitely have size down low. And I think we're going to see a similar offense, like you mentioned, to what that he brought in and learned under Golden at Florida. And yeah, just won a national championship. I mean, come on now. That's proof in the pudding. No matter what coaching staff you're part of, whether you're a scout, whether you're a team manager, you got a natty, and that's something enticing for a young kid up and coming into a program, and also teams that are a little more experienced that are trying to transfer into those programs. So yeah, we like the Fighting Camels of Campbell.
Yeah, and with him leveraging the fact that he just won the Natty also, but also the fact that he's been under Todd Golden ever since San Francisco. So for over 10 years now, he's been with him. So you see what today's day and age of college basketball is. It's people getting a shot at the mid-major level, proving themselves, and then kind of taking that next step up. Well, he kind of creates this perfect funnel and this perfect funnel to kind of get to that higher ranks. He's got the people that he knows, just the people around him that he's able to have good relationships with. So, if he brings in a guy from a mid-major level, they prove himself, direct connection to playing at Florida or something like that. So, I think it's a easy way for him to recruit and to bring people in.
College of Charleston, the Cougars, Charleston, South Carolina, last season 24-9, 13-5, 0 returning starters under Chris Mack and the rebrand. Chris Mack, who coached at Xavier, some other places as well. And also was a Field of 68 commentator. But we mentioned Campbell. They bring in Colby Duggan, who comes in from Campbell as well too, and made a first All-League campaign last season. So you do have shooters there. You have a D2 transfer coming in from Kendall Taylor, who averaged 25 points per game. You bring in some size as well from Clemson, Christian Reeves, who's 7'2". And then Cole McCoat from Florida Southwest College, who's 7 foot. So that size that Charleston always has, something about that, even under Pat Kelsey, always had that size of some big man being able to also shoot threes. And then you also bring in a Winthrop transfer and Bryce Baker. So, kind of a lower year for Charleston after being a dominant, but they still went 24-9, and Chris Mack wasn't super thrilled about it. So he wants to be able to win, and I think this talent is going to continue in the CAA for sure. And they're going to make some noise again in this conference, even only returning 0 starters and a whole new roster, unfamiliar with each other.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing that they really struggled with last year was on the defensive end. I mean, they put up 77 points a game, so they had no trouble with scoring the ball. It was just when they played those other teams that were good on the offensive end, they just weren't able to stop them and get the stops needed to be at that top tier, finishing third. But those top 2 teams, UNC-Wilmington, Towson, they were just able to grind it out a little bit more, be a little bit more defensive minded, and I think that really showed. I think you had mentioned he brought in the D2 piece. Another guy that he brought in was Jalen Counter, averaged 10.5 a game, 4 rebounds a game there at Middle Tennessee State. He actually, I think he came from IUPUI originally, was IUPUI's leading scorer for a long time, their guard there, and then he transferred to Middle Tennessee State. But I think he's a guard that he's really shifty, really crafty, can score the ball. I think he's one of those guys that is going to be very relied upon, being that veteran point guard, as he's a graduate transfer. So I expect him to really make a big dent and play a big role for Coach Mack there. Another guy that I'm really interested in too, as well, is graduate senior Connor Hickman. He comes from the Big 12, Cincinnati. Anytime you've got you've got a guy that averaged 4 points, 2.5 rebounds, 6'3" guard, coming from a physical Big 12 conference, I think it can translate well to that mid-major rank. So I really expect him to have some good numbers as well. So really, really curious to see how it translates. I think he's going to, it was his first season last year. Now in his second year here, I think he's going to really put more of an emphasis on defense this year, just for the fact that that's kind of what they were lacking last year to really compete for that championship. But 24-9, if he thinks that's average, look out for what's to come for College of Charleston.
I mean, Chris Mack, proven winner, great coach, great commentator, Field 68. Drexel Dragons, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, last season, another Big Five as well. 18-15, CAA 9-9. One returning starter under Zach Spiker, 131 and 145, 9 years. So just kind of an underwhelming tenure for Drexel. Drexel, a team that just likes to grind you out, completely just suffocate you on defense and limit possessions and kind of just make you a little squirmy with the ball, which is always good, can lead to wins, but the lack of shooting and points going up on the board is always an issue sometimes with those heavily defensive teams. Not hating on defense or anything, as that was my forte playing basketball. But Spiker, never really had much talent, hasn't had much talent with this portal, and I think we're going to see a lack of that again this year. I'm not too high on these Drexel Dragons. I think they're going to be middle of the road, just kind of like that style of play that I said. They do bring a couple pieces in that I think that can add a couple shooting abilities in Dylan Tingler, and then Moses Hips, who from Boise State, that I think could be a solid shooter, and then Eli Beard, 5'11", but a 40% shooter at the D3 college level. So you got to be able to enjoy that, get him out into open, transition, but also being able to force plays that move around him, and to keep him wide open, just with kind of like that style of play that we mentioned. One of their assistants I want to talk about is Franz Massenat. Led Drexel to the NCAA tournament, one of their best players that we've seen and talent-wise in a long time. So there's going to be some coaching staff that I think that wants to be able to win, and I know Spiker definitely wants to win, as his seat is a little hot, and Franz Massenet sitting there maybe knows what's on the helm potentially. So they do bring some size in. I think that you could talk about Elliott, but we know that that's kind of how they play. So they're going to want size, they're going to want rebounding, and those second chance opportunities. So Drexel, they'll be all right. Middle of the road again, maybe a step down from 7th. We just never know with how many teams finish 500. 6 could mean this year's 9th. You never know how it works out, and you got to look at the numbers. But middle of the road again for Drexel, I think, just kind of with that style of play that I mentioned.
Yeah, and Raymond brings up a good point. Zach Spiker used to coach at Army, and it definitely shows. He's got a huge emphasis on defense, keeping the ball in the paint, and rebounding. It seems like here and here out. You mentioned Franz Massenet there at Drexel. Besides that, you look at the people that come out of Drexel, and they've got a lot of guys that maybe aren't necessarily like all CAA type guys, but more guys that just he's able to kind of really develop, and it shows that he's able to develop those guys, because you've got guys that transferred this last year to Florida State, Butler, Providence, Indiana. So high mid-major guys, or high mid-major portal guys that are leaving Drexel. So it's not like he has an issue with getting the talent. It's just hard for him to keep that talent. So it's kind of like this revolving door where he's just trying to always figuring out the pieces of who's going to be able to fit into his system and who's going to be able to do exactly what he wants, and that's playing defense and rebounding the ball. And I think that the fact that he, it shows what kind of a coach he is, just because he can, despite losing the pieces, he's able to get people to buy in to his system, and he can be somewhat successful. But it's almost like, like you say, they're always kind of middle of the pack. They're not going to be at the bottom, but they're not going to be at the top, just because of the system that he has and the people that he's able to bring in, and he can't really retain those key pieces either. So,
and Trevor, welcome back. Just in time, blue and yellow, feeling good. I'm not drinking a Miller Lite by any means. Perfect color scheme. You jump right back into with the Drexel Dragons. How you feeling about? Well, they probably have score as many points as some baseball teams do.
Yeah. Feels like the same old Drexel. One returning starter. They got some middling players that kind of did whatever last year. So if they can take a step forward, obviously that'll help with them being in the system. But I mean, a good chunk of the roster's returning, which they weren't obviously they're not an elite scoring team, but defense is always a priority. I think, again, it's going to be another priority, and they'll be solid defensively, but they're going to play some ugly basketball again. I don't expect much of an improvement. If anything, maybe a little step back, just depending on how those returning players kind of do overall. The transfers are fine, but I'm just not high on this Drexel team. I don't really have much faith in them.
8.9% beer. Not talking to Drexel.
Elon,
go ahead.
I think the lack of a backcourt is really going to pose a problem for Drexel. I think their front court's going to be okay and be fine, just like how it always is. Despite that, one of their bigs, 6'9" sophomore, he's out for at least till February. He might end up even redshirting. Clem, I'm going to butcher this last name, but Idomwinen, he's going to be out until at least February. I would assume that maybe they just end up medically redshirting if he's going to miss that much time. But yeah, I really think what's holding them back is going to be that backcourt. I think they're really going to struggle at the backcourt.
Yep. Agreed. Said similar things about Drexel. Elon, North Carolina. Last season, 17-16, 9-9, whatever, 8-10, I don't know. Close enough. 0 returning starters. Billy Taylor, 35-59, 3 years. Elon was good, man. Like, the record doesn't show it, but they were good. They made the CBI tournament. I like this Elon team. They had tons of talent, and it shows. They had transfers go to Oregon, Indiana, Seton Hall, Marshall, and Youngstown State. So Billy Taylor able to get that talent working. But he brings in some good talent. And Jawan Carter, who took a step back into the D2 realm, but transferred in from played at UNC-Wilmington, so rival CAA opponent. And then you also have Kasper Klasek. I'm sure, I don't know, it's some Polish pronouncing name, coming from Albany, so adding that size that Billy Taylor loves. I think he has always been in a system where he loves size and having that advantage to be able to rebound. And in this league, we're talking about it already, tons of teams that have size, but that size can be shooters as well too. So I like the CAA just being able to have those kind of both sides of the ball, and also just some big men that can shoot, especially some foreign Eastern Slavic kids as well, a lot in the CAA. You bring in Bryson Spell from Liberty, Virginia Beach native, and then Randall Pettis II from Northern Kentucky. So Elon, who was a solid team last year, I think they're going to be definitely a size problem, and I think their record doesn't show how well they did last year, winning some key games, going on a couple winning streaks as well. But they're going to be at the bottom half of this conference as it's a step back. They're going to have to get somewhat gelling before the end of the season. I think they're going to be able to win games, but this year they're going to be at the back half. But you never know. You never know with this portal. We always say that, hey, this could be a bad thing. We don't know how they're going to play, but also their off season, they could just be rocking. So complete rebound for the Phoenix, but sometimes that's good. And for the Phoenix and the brand itself, we know that they rise up from the ashes. So Billy Taylor, 4th year, maybe a down year, but you never know with the Phoenix. Yeah, they're very big again, too, Raymond. I think just Taylor, like I said, he loves the size. They've been big under his tenure. What you got, guys?
Yeah, my bad. Elon, right here. Yeah, one returning starter. Billy Taylor's back. The entire starting five is gone, though. I mean, they had rotational starting fives, but their primary starting five is gone. So that's gonna be tough. But they brought in a lot of experience and 2 or 3 players, I think, that have actually played at Elon before. So that should be a help, kind of getting some recognition back in the program with guys who've been there. But I mean, they got potential given what experience and size they added. Like you said, they're always play big. So, that's their trademark, and they'll have that this year. They saw a bunch of growth I shouldn't say a bunch, but they shown some growth the last 2 seasons. So I think they'll kind of hang around. I know they lose about everybody, but as of late they've gotten better, and he knows what guys he wants. He went out and got them and added them to this program. So I think they could probably start to click fairly soon and kind of have them hanging around the same spot, if not improve a little bit more this year. Now that he knows the system and gets his guys in there, and they've been doing better. So I think Elon kind of hangs around the same spot this year, maybe a little improved, but I don't think they're going to be contending or anything for this conference.
Yeah, they're a wild card for me. Just exactly what you said, Huff. It's one of those teams where you lost all 5 of your starters. Now you got to bring in just a shit ton of portal people and hope that it meshes well. So the fact that he was able to do that last year, and they had some guys that would really kind of take over the game late, kind of led to their success. I will say, their 3-quarter court defense that they kind of run is kind of also an interesting kind of piece. Not a lot of teams see it, so it takes a little bit of time for those other CAA teams to kind of prepare for, just because it's a unique style of defense that they run that not a lot of people run. And so, a guy that I would look out for is Isaac Harrell. Shot about 40% from 3 last year. In the CBI game against Army, had a career high 20 points, hit 6 threes. So I think that, that might trampoline him into having a great year. So he would be one. Isaac Harrell would be a name that I would watch out for Elon to kind of step up to kind of take over some of that scoring aspect. But, for me, they're a wild card. Not sure what to get from them, so it's going to be kind of me sticking them maybe, middle of the conference, maybe a little bit below middle of the conference. But like you said, Huff, you never know. You can catch lightning in a bottle, as I always say, with some of these portal additions, and you could be, competing at the top. So you just never know. It's hard to say. And Raymond, I'll just shout this out. So I think we talked about this a few episodes ago, but yeah, they're merging with Queens, but it's strictly academics. So athletically, they're both going to have, both going to be NCAA Division I institutions athletically. So Queens is going to be their own separate entity, and Elon's going to be their own separate entity as well. It's just academically is where they're merging.
Yep. The Phoenix maybe not rising up. The Hampton Pirates, though, they were rising up last year. What an improvement of what we've seen, even though they finished 9th, or not 9th, just had a typo there, but 17-16 out of Hampton, Virginia. They did finish 8-10, tied for 9th under Ivan Thomas's first year, and they lost in the quarterfinals of the CAA. But you bring back Daniel Johnson, who made the CAA all freshman year team, and I think just was a jump up from Hampton's normal, just abysmal kind of teams. They really were gritty down low. They got a lot of rebounds. I think they were solid in the front court. I think that's what Thomas likes to play and prove. So I think they're going to be able to be good on that and on the other side of the ball in the front court. So surprise team, I would say no, because bringing back 2 returning starters, 1 all-freshman team, a young team that they have a lot of longevity and growth to go, but maturity, I think, being able to start right away as a true freshman, and I think this team's going to be a solid team in the CAA this year yet again, and make some noise as they did last year, being able to cover and also some upset wins in this conference. So I like the Pirates this year.
Yep, I like them too. Ivan Thomas, they were really good last year for his first year. Now you brought back a good chunk of your roster, 2 returning starters too. I think this team's going to be very, very much improved. They're pretty deep. They can play multiple styles to match up with anyone. So I think Hampton takes a solid step this year. This is one of my dark horse teams. I like Ivan Thomas, and they return a lot of the guys from last year that had all this success, and now you're going to run it back. I know you lost some starters, but a lot of those bench guys that came in and contributed are all back too, so they might take a step forward and find themselves in starting positions potentially. So Big fan of this Hampton team. I think they take a big step forward this year in the CAA.
Yeah, you mentioned that all CAA rookie, but Xavier Long is another guy. He's going to be a senior this year. The other starter, coach there, Coach Thomas, he really likes this kid. So he's one of the most coachable kids and one of his favorite kind of players. Coach that he likes to coach, and I feel like Hampton has always kind of been. We're like, oh, we just kind of brush them off, and like, oh yeah, they're going to finish kind of near the bottom, whatever. Aren't very competitive, but I really like what Coach Thomas did in year one, and I feel like they're going to be able to take a step up here again in year two as he continues to kind of put his footprint in the Hampton program and just kind of start out and kind of lay his foundation, and hopefully he'll be able to kind of create this Hampton team into a team that's meant to be reckoned with here in the CAA, and maybe it gives him a chance to possibly get an opportunity at a higher level as a head coach one day.
All right. The Hofstra Pride out of Hempstead, New York, last season 15-18, 6-12 last year, finished 11th in the CAA under Speedy Claxton in his worst year since he's 81-52 in 4 years there. But you bring back 2 returning starters, and I don't think they're that great, to be honest with you. A team that's just lacking NIL funding compared to their superior conferences with NIL, or superior teams in this conference with NIL. I think that's being able to be an issue for the portal. And what did they not be able to do last year? Shoot the ball. They're not going to be able to shoot the ball yet again. I like Speedy Claxton. Love him. Always loved him, playing video games with him. He was always fantasy drafted. Maybe later in the fantasy drafts. But always a lot of respect for Speedy Claxton. I think he can work with what he got, but I think they're going to really lack intangible, or just lack experience, intangibles, and all the things in between that we don't talk about outside of the stats. So I don't like this Hofstra team, and I don't think they're going to be able to shoot the ball yet again in 2025.
Muted again, damn it. I think Hofstra will be improved. You brought 2 returning starters back. Hofstra also was 1-9 in games that were 6 points or less. That's just brutal, and not to mention they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. So they got that close 10 times and just could never pull out a win out of anything. But they had a Josh Reeves from St. Mary's UIC who shot 37% from 3, and then AJ Willis shot 43% last season, and he's got some experience. So they got 2 guys that can shoot the ball. I think that's going to be a huge improvement for Hofstra. It's just, can they maintain the defensive pressure and prowess that they're built on? If they can, I think this is going to be a much improved Hofstra team. I don't think they're going to contend or anything, but I think they can find themselves kind of towards the middle of the CAA if these shooters actually work out for them. So I'm higher on Hofstra. I don't think they're going to finish near the bottom again this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is program's first losing season since 2016, 2017. So really unlike a Hofstra program, I don't think Speedy Claxton really likes to lose, as you can tell with his record in his 4 years there at Hofstra. One thing that's tough is they lost Carlos Lopez to a torn ACL in the middle of this summer this year, so he's going to actually miss the entire season. That was somebody that they were really high on. He was a guy averaged almost 10 points a game, was all rookie there in the Northeast Conference for St. Francis. He had transferred there, so that's a tough loss for them. I know that Huff doesn't think they'll be able to shoot. However, I kind of agree with you, Trevor. They brought in Cruz Davis, shot about 39% from 3, and he was the one guy that was there last year that shot about 39%. But then they brought in AJ Wills, shot about 43% there at Holy Cross in Wyoming. And then they also bring in a guy from the D2 ranks, Trey Boyd, and he shot about 37% from the 3. Another guy, also Joshua Reeves, a guy shot 42% from the 3 there at UIC and Mount St. Mary's the last couple years. So I like the fact that he tried to address the issues that they were kind of laden with last year. I do think it's going to be tough with missing Carlos Lopez with injury, as they were going to rely upon him heavily. However, I feel like, I agree with you, Trevor, in the fact that, I feel like it's going to be more of a 9-9 type of a year rather than a 6-12 type of a year. Like you said, 1-8 in games decided by 6 points or less. I feel like they maybe get a couple of those, maybe instead of 1-8, something like that. They're more so like 3-6 along those lines, and that kind of gets them to that 8-10, 9-9 rank. So I would expect for Hofstra to kind of bounce back here and maybe finish at or above, just above 500.
All right. A little disagreement there. Monmouth Hawks out of West Long Branch, New Jersey. Last season, 13-20, 10-8, tied for fifth with King Rice, 220 and 228 in 14 years, not 4. You bring back 3 returning starters, and you really just played well in the CAA. You won some solid games, and beating Charleston twice. I mean, I really like this Monmouth team. They were able to cover at home a lot, and I think you bring back a solid amount of pieces. So that this middle portion of the CAA is going to be really tough, and we're going to see a ton of battles there. And I like this talented team of Monmouth, who kind of excelled expectations last year. And we see them just right back in that kind of 5th to 7th range in this conference, I believe. Just being able to win games, but not being able to stay consistent. But I do think they bring back a little more depth than they had last year.
Yeah. That's where you at. Yeah, I mean, 3 returning starters and King Rice is back, so that's huge. But they did lose three key players to the portal. So that's definitely going to hurt them. But they did get that Cornelius Johnson kid, athletic 6'7" guy. He was mainly playing the big, I believe, last year for him, if I remember. But now they got Doc Mordor, 7'1", big man down low to kind of help out there. But their forwards have decent size, but they don't really have a ton of height really to bounce back with when Mordor leaves the game. But I think they'll be all right. I don't think they're going to find themselves up towards 5th again in this conference, but I do think Monmouth will have a decent year, but I think they take a step back a little bit here.
Yeah, first I just want to say thank you to Monmouth for giving K-State Abdi Bashir Jr. Also, thank you, Monmouth, for giving Wichita State, my second team that I cheer for, Jarrett Valencia. So their top 2 guys last year ended up at my top 2, ended up at the 2 schools that I root for there in college basketball. So we appreciate you for giving us those 2 players. But yeah, I think it seems like Monmouth is always a team that really struggles outside of conference, and then somehow King Rice always just kind of figures it out there in the CAA and always figures out how to be competitive. He just knows how to be competitive in the CAA, regardless of the talent that he has or the people that he has playing for him. I think it's going to be tough to, make up for those 2 starters that they lost and those 2 guys that I had just mentioned. However, I think that he's still going to be able to kind of coach his way through the CAA and kind of finish in that middle of the pack. I'm not super high on them where I think that they're going to be, near the top of the conference or anything like that. But, at home, they're always feisty. So they may pick off a couple of those teams near the top of the CAA. However, I just think that, that they lack a little bit of the talent. They lost the talent, and I don't think that they got the talent back that they lost. Obviously, it's hard to in today's portal era and the NIL with them just not having the NIL that a lot of the teams have. And so, for them to be successful and to kind of repeat kind of their 10-8 season there in the CAA last year, there's going to be a lot of guys on this roster that are going to kind of have to exceed expectations, in my opinion. And so I just feel like they're going to take a step back because of that.
All right. North Carolina A&T, the Aggies last season 7-25, 3-15, 14th in the CAA, 1 returning starter. Monty Ross in his third year, 14-50, and I don't think it's going to get any better. I'm really low on NCAA. They just lack defense, gambling problems, what you name it. That's a disciplinary issue, especially with a lot of well coached teams. And in this conference, I'm not no disrespect to Monty. I'm no idea what happened in that gambling case, but in the end of the day, it's on the coaches, and they need to be able to kind of teach both sides of the ball. And defensively, they're just going to struggle again. So a lot of teams are going to cover against the Aggies. Unfortunately, again, I think we're going to see them last. So I'm going to give you this. It's a step up from 14th. They'll be 13th in the CAA and finish last in this conference. There's my spoiler for you.
Yeah, they finally got height. Especially last year, they didn't have anybody. They were like almost one of
I think because of the issues.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the gambling. But I mean, still, regardless, like they just didn't have height anyway. And now they got a bunch of 6'11", 6'8", 6'9" guys that can actually play these positions instead of sending some 6'8" guy out there and a bunch of guards to run around the floor. So I think that's going to be better for them. I think they'll be better on the defensive end of the floor. Just how will the offense look? Is it going to be same old, or will it be a little improved? Not you have some size inside, get some second chance opportunities, be able to dump it into somebody inside. So I think they improve this year for sure. I don't think they're going to be a 7-25 team. I think they could be 9-23. Upside. I think winning 10 games this year is a big win for Monty Ross. But yeah, they'll be better. I don't. They think they will be catching any teams on the road that they shouldn't. I think maybe at home they might get feisty, but I don't see this team as going on the road and constantly finding themselves in games. But they will be improved from last year.
Yeah, as Trevor always likes to point out, 339th in size last year. And so they like Trev just said, they replaced the size factor and they added a bunch of size, added some rim protectors. So maybe they're going to be a little bit better on the defensive end. However, is that going to make them better on the offensive end? I'm not quite sure, because offensive end is where they really, really struggled, 12th in the CAA in points scored per game. So, whereas they might be a little bit better defensively, I don't know necessarily if it's going to translate offensively, and I still think that they're going to struggle there. And if you struggle to score and maybe you take a small step up defensively, okay, yeah, maybe you're a little bit more competitive. However, I still think you're losing same amount of games or similar amount of games, just maybe by a little bit less margin. So I've got them, at the bottom, if not the bottom one or two spots there in the CAA. Like Huff said, they take a small step up because we don't have 14 teams anymore. So we at least know they're taking a small step up.
All right. Not too high on the Aggies. Northeastern, last season 17-15, 9-9, just another average team. But Bill Cohn, speaking of average, 299 and 299 under 19 years under his system. But he is a proven winner. He is solid. We know how his system works, kind of that run and gun, motion offense, get you out in a transition style of play. And that Huskies team, it normally works, but it's tough to get consistent shooters with the transfer portal. And, I think that some experience is going to help, and they're going to have one of the better guard play in the CAA conference, just knowing how they like to run and gun. Like I mentioned, they like to rely on the three, which could be a live and die kind of mentality, which can be tough. But I think Northeastern's going to be a little step back from 7th, just trying to get more, just trying to build out for the future and trying to get some continuity for next season versus a lot of roster turnover that they've experienced. But I like Northeastern. They're always going to be competitive-ish. And again, being 9-9, 7-11, 8-10, that could have you at the lower end of this conference. But they're definitely going to be more competitive than, I believe, the lower three of this conference.
Yeah, I think they take a little step back too. I mean, they got a nice front court, but it's a whole bunch of just mishmash pieces that are tall and have skill, but you have that many, you can't play them all at the same time. I mean, sure, some will come off the bench, but how well are these guys going to really play together? They got some decent freshmen too, but I mean, they lost a ton of guys. Yet again, I mean, they returned two starters, but other than that, it's kind of just been some new guys. So I think they'll be all right, but I don't think they're going to find themselves near the middle of the CAA. I got Northeastern taking a step back this year, finished around 9th or 10th in the conference.
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit higher on them than you guys seem to be. I would kind of disagree, Trevor. I think that their front court is unproven, and while they may be talented, I don't quite see it from their front court. I think they're going to be a lot more reliant on their back court. One of their biggest guys that they bring in, Mike Lunane, he came from Davidson. It's a guy that Davidson's going to miss. He was a point guard last year. So they bring him in to kind of fill that void at point guard. And I think he's going to be a veteran playmaker for them, as he started for Davidson last year. So I feel like they brought in a good piece in that. And they've got a couple guys, a couple junior guards that shot damn near the same percentage, like 38.8% from three. And they kind of not necessarily live and die by the three, but they rely on the three heavily. And
They do.
I also think that they not only do they shoot the three really well, they also defend the three really well. That's kind of one of the staples for a Bill Cohen coach team is they're going to shoot the three, but they're also going to not allow as many 3-pointers to be shot up on the other side of the ball defensively. And so the only issue that I see is I know that I always like to say threes are better than twos. However, with a front court that's kind of unproven. In the CAA, they might get bullied there in the front court by a few teams that we'll talk about maybe coming up. So that's my only kind of issue that I see with them coming up this season. But I expect them, I could see them finishing 99, but I could also see them finishing 11-7, something along those lines, maybe a little bit better than what they were last year, just by the pieces that they brought in. That I liked in the portal, and Lunane there as the point guard, and then kind of surrounding him with a couple of those guys that shoot well from the perimeter. So I'm a little higher on them, I think, than you guys are.
I think their style of play certainly relies on that three, which can be volatile, but definitely can be analytically sound.
Apparently, it's not real volatile. 299 and 299.
Stony Brook Seawolves last season 8-24, 4-14 in the CAA, 13th under Gino Ford in his 7th year. He brings back one returning starter, and man, I don't know. The Stony Brook team really lacked offensive talent last year, but they are a force down low. They do have a good amount of size, and I think they bring back a good amount of rebounding, so for second chance opportunity that they're going to be able to compete with a lot of other tall teams. But I think they take a major jump from 13th. We get Stony Brook kind of a little more competitive than we saw last year. But again, I think talent-wise, offensively, they struggle versus some of these other teams that we've mentioned.
Yeah, they got size, which is huge. They got a couple of decent portal players too. But at the end of the day, I mean, just adding two players really that could make a difference to the Stony Brook team aren't going to be huge. I know they got a lot of size and whatnot, but they don't really have much offense going for that, and their defense might struggle too. I think it's another poor year for Stony Brook. Maybe they win another game or so in conference play, but I kind of think 4-14 is kind of their norm. I'm not too high on Stony Brook again this year. I just think it's going to be another sad year of Stony Brook basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Coach Ford, I think, is disappointed with losing yet another one of his key pieces, C.J. Luster, to UNC-Wilmington. It's second straight year where he's lost basically his best player to a CAA rival and powerhouse. So just funny how those intra-conference transfers kind of work out. However, I think, unlike last year, I think he did bring in some good pieces in the portal that are kind of proven. proven winners, proven on a level with experience. In particular, I think that Rob Brown III is one of those guys who comes from Nichols, averaged 13 a game, shoots about 36% from the three. And then Eric Pratt, a guy that came from Milwaukee. He's a grad transfer, and he averaged about 10 points a game, 3 rebounds a game. So, I feel like he didn't do a good job in the portal last year, and he kind of learned from that. And he was able to kind of get a few more pieces that are, more reliable, more dependable than what he brought. So I agree with you, Huff. I think that they can take a step up in terms of that finishing 13th in the CAA. However, I don't see them, making a significant jump. But I do think that they do take a step up.
All right, the Towson Tigers out of Towson, Maryland last season, 22-11, 16-2, finished first in the conference, and you bring back 2 returning starters. And they struggled through injuries and sickness last year, and then they now finished first. And Tyler Tejada coming back, CAA Player of the Year coming back again, Dylan Williamson coming back. So Towson with one of the better talented teams in this conference, tons of NIL that I talked about earlier, compared to some other teams. You got Caleb Mbea coming in, talked about size going up, and then also Morsek as well. Morsek, let's go. I like that name. 7'1". So bringing in a solid front court addition, having already those backcourt pieces that are instrumental to the Towson Tigers. I think they're going to be just fine at the top half of this conference yet again. And they're a physical team, man, that likes to beat you up.
Yeah, I like this Towson team. They brought in some great guys, and then you said it, Tejada and Williamson returning were huge because those guys were 30+ points a game, 6+ rebounds. And Tejada shot 31%, and Williamson shot 43% from 3. So great shooters, great scorers. These guys can rebound too. So that's huge. Bringing in those big players, like you said, Morsek, 7'1", to come in and kind of be a rim presence. And then the Caleb Mbea kid, 6'11", 240, was a freshman last year, but he had 7.5 fouls per 40 minutes. So it was really hard for him to stay on the floor. So I think adding that size, and if they can improve him from not being in foul trouble all the time, I think this team is going to be just as good next year too. I really like this Towson team. So keeping them high up there. I was reading that Pat Scarry wants to play faster, but they average 296 in possession length, but they turn the ball over a lot. So if they can cut down on the turnovers and whatnot, this team could be really, really good coming up in the CAA this year.
Yeah, they surprisingly weren't as big of a defensive team as they typically were. I know they finished 162nd there in the KenPom defensive efficiency, which was they're significantly worst here in the last 5 years. However, they were very good offensively, and they also finished 7-0 in games that were decided by 5 points or less there in regulation or overtime. So, maybe a little luck was on their side to kind of get that 16-2. Maybe they should have been more of that 15-3, 14-4. However, it's one of those teams that's, like you said, returning Tyler Tejada and Dylan Williamson. They added that piece, like you guys have said. I expect another year where they're going to be flirting at the top of the conference, and not much else is to be said. I feel like if they can improve a little bit on the defensive end of things, it can make them a little bit more reliable there in the CAA tournament. I know they got upset in the CAA tournament. So, I think if they're wanting to really finally make that NCAA tournament, I think their last one was in 1991. I believe. So if they're trying to break that streak, they're really going to have to just get a little bit better on the defensive side, because as we all know, you can be a very good offensive team, but if you have an off night shooting, you got to rely on that defense to kind of keep you in it. And so that's a thing. I think one of the things that Coach Scarry will really kind of emphasize this year, especially being one of their worst defensive years last year.
Shout out Raymond, Baltimore native. All right. Penultimate team in the CAA, UNC-Wilmington Seahawks, who made the NCAA tournament. Don't know if it was an upset because they finished 27-8 last season, 14-4. Technically an upset. Second team beats the one. And Takayo Siddle, proven winner, 106-47. I thought he for sure would get maybe another job. But I think he did well in the portal this season. And then you bring back McCoy, McCoy, 6'11", 240-pound center. And then you bring in CJ Luster, all of Stony Brook's offense, basically, that I think could be CAA Player of the Year, flirt with it at least. Madison Durr, you bring in, CAA familiarity from Monmouth. Jonathan Lamoth, 13.8 per game for North Carolina A&T, another CAA transfer, interconference, gotta love it. And then Patrick Wessler out of Virginia Tech. Gavin Walsh coming in, who averaged 12 points per game at Binghamton. So some solid pieces added for Siddle that we know UNC-Wilmington, a proven winner and winning program that I think is just going to be just as competitive and maybe not make the NCAA tournament. I almost hit my first half. And money line UNC-Wilmington play for the 14 seeds. So, I like Wilmington, of course, especially with what Siddle's been able to do. And I just enjoy him as a coach, and they definitely have the talent to be competitive in this conference yet again. Go Seahawks. Love that logo. Classic.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm really high on this UNC-Wilmington team, too. They're spending a lot more money in portal or transfer, NIL money, whatever. And they're going to be taller than they were last year. They were 69th in average height last year. They're going to be taller this year. So that's going to work out really well on the offensive and defensive glass. Brought back a lot of guys from last season too who played and were in this program. So you have guys who are familiar with it. And then not only you're bringing in some other really, really good players out of the portal, like Patrick Wessler. He didn't play much, but he had a 121.8 offensive rating in 19 ACC games and had double-digit scoring against Miami and Duke as a 7-footer. So I think he's going to be a huge part of this team, getting him in there. And then they brought in a lot of experience also. So I'm high on this team. I think they're going to be right up there fighting for first place for the CAA and getting a win for the conference this year. So really love Wilmington this year. I think they're going to be improved from last year for sure.
Yeah, the Seahawks, they're always a team that I always tend to gravitate towards when I'm betting in March. They'd always just seem to have success there at the end of the season and at the CAA tournament, no matter where they are ranked or record-wise. Just somebody that I've always kind of chosen to bet on, and I've made some good money here in the last 3-4 years because of it. I think this is Coach Siddle's one of his most deep teams, kind of 1 through 10, and maybe even like 1 through 12. Like you said, Trev, they've got a lot of NIL money. I know they're second in the CAA next to College of Charleston. Obviously, College of Charleston has deep pockets. However, so they're second in NIL, so they can bring in a lot of players. But I think, the three kind of returners, Noah Ross averaged 8 points, 5 rebounds last year. Nolan Hodge, 7.5 points, 4 rebounds. And then Greedy Williams, 5.5 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Who's their starting point guard. Kind of started there at the end of January, and they only lost 3 games, including the game against Texas Tech after he kind of assumed that point guard role. So I think, we talk about all these big-time transfer portal people that they brought in with that NIL money, but I really think the 3 returners, 2 of which, Noah Ross and Nolan Hodge, have been there since Siddle's first year there when he was a coach, when he started his coaching career there at UNCW. So I expect those 3 people to be kind of the engine that kind of propels the Seahawks to kind of maybe, personally, I think maybe get first in the conference regular season, but maybe they fall short a little bit there in the conference tournament, unlike last year.
All right. And the final team for the CAA, the William and Mary Tribe out of Williamsburg, Virginia. Last season, 17-15, 11-7, though. They did really well in the CAA and definitely exceeded expectations. We love this William and Mary team. We bet on them a lot last year. and it's year 2 under Brian Earl. You bring one returning starter, losing a lot in the portal. So it's going to be a whole new roster for William and Mary. So I think record-wise, they may be similar, but in the CAA, not so much. I think they take a major step back. They like that run and gun kind of style. They're able to shoot the ball. So if they're able to continue shooting, they're going to be competitive. But I do think it's going to be a step back from 11-7 this year.
I think they can kind of hang around to where they were last year. They brought some guys back and some guys that have played on the floor and in the system last year, and you're going to bring in some size down low, which should help them because they played so fast that, if they didn't if the shot didn't go in, they couldn't get a rebound. But they were still incredibly efficient last year, and Brian Earl has increased his offensive efficiency when he was at Cornell. So he's bringing in guys he likes. Some guys are returning, guys that have played in this system last year. I think William and Mary will find themselves kind of similar to last year, kind of top 5 in the CAA here, but I don't think they added enough or have enough continuity to find themselves contending for winning the CAA. But I think they'll be a top 5 team for sure in this conference.
Yeah, I think there definitely could be a lot of variance for the fact that 40% of their shots are from the 3. They played fast, obviously 3rd in the nation in tempo. It's also a team that you see that they play a significant number of guys, at least 10, if not 10 to 12 guys. I know last year 10 guys averaged more than 15 minutes. Like you said, Coach Earl, he really kind of emphasized offensive efficiency and was a top 60 in offensive efficiency in the last 2 seasons they're at Cornell. So the fact that, they maybe weren't as efficient as he would have liked, I expect them to maybe increase in that offensive efficiency category this year. This is just something that he kind of really emphasizes. But, it's really hard just with the variance of the fact that if you're shooting almost half of your shots from 3, to really make that repeatable. I like to see this team as, a 9-9 type team, 10-8 type team, something like that, but have the ability to pick off a team like a Towson, like a UNC-Wilmington, one of those top teams when they get hot, like a hot shooting night at home there in Williamsburg. So, I expect them to maybe upset some of those top tier teams just because of catching fire from 3 and just how much they focus and emphasize the 3 ball. However, I also think that they can drop some games to some teams that we don't expect just due to that variance as well.
Yeah, I mean, you make great points about the offense. I think their offense is going to be major and definitely just a key piece there for the Tribe. But that was our CAA, folks. So now we're going to round out our top 13 from the bottom up like we did the A10. Trevor, you did miss your Atlantic 10 predictions. We did our 14. If you want to start there, just do top to bottom unless you don't have it, or you can just do the Twitter too as well. You're on mute, my friend.
Yep, don't have the list written down, but I'll have it up on that thing tomorrow when I get it up.
All right. 13th for me. Already said it. North Carolina A&T.
13th for me is Stony Brook.
Uh, 13th for me, I am going to go with NC-A&T.
And 12th for me is going to be the Elon Phoenix.
Yep, same for me, Elon.
Yeah, 12 for me. I'm going to go Elon as well.
11th for me is Drexel. I think we'll see a step back.
11th for me is just had their name. Northeastern.
11th for me, Stony Brook.
Tenth for me is Hofstra.
Ninth for me is NCAA, or 10th.
10th for me, Drexel.
Ninth for me, Stony Brook, the Seawolves.
Ninth for me is Drexel.
Ninth is going to be Monmouth for me. Sorry.
All right, eighth for me is going to be Northeastern.
Eighth for me is Monmouth.
Eighth for me is Hofstra.
Seventh is Monmouth for me in the King Rice team.
7 is Campbell.
7 for me is Bill and Mary.
6 for me is Bill and Mary.
6 for me is Hofstra.
6 for me is Northeastern.
5th for me is going to be the Hampton Pirates.
5th is also Hampton.
5th for me is going to be Hampton as well.
All right. 4th for me is going to be the Campbell Fighting Camels.
4th for me is Bill and Mary.
Wow.
4th for me is going to be Towson.
All right, and then 3rd for me is going to be UNC-Wilmington.
3rd for me is Towson.
3rd, College of Charleston.
All right, and 2nd for me is College of Charleston, and I will take Towson to repeat the CAA regular season title, see if they can finish off the conference championship.
Yep, 2 I got Charleston, 1 I got UNC Dub.
2 I got Campbell, 1 I got UNC Dub. I've got Towson going to the tournament for the first time since 1991 as the 4 seed.
All right, shout out 1991. Thanks everyone for tuning in. That is the CAA preview. We did our A10 preview just before that. We will be back this week with more previews as we're finishing off just a couple more weeks of previews, and then we'll get into our futures episodes, conference, futures as well as they get to release more, and we always do our preseason top 25 as well too. So that's always a traditional episode here on the Pump Fake Pod, which will go through our top 25. But tomorrow we'll be doing the A-Sun and Big South. And then the AAC rescheduled from last Wednesday to this Wednesday. So just the AAC. And then the Big West and Big Sky on Thursday. And then next week we do the just one episode per conference. Missouri Valley, Mountain West, West Coast Conference / Pac-12. And then the Big East. And then we do the SEC, Big 12, ACC, Big 10 that second to last week of October. And then, like I mentioned, those preseason top 25 futures episode that final week. And then we'll get going on the full slate November 4th. This is the CAA A10 preview. We appreciate everyone tuning in. This is the @Pump Fake Pod. Make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Avetta, John, Raymond. Appreciate you guys. I think we missed a couple more. Matthew Rock, thanks for tuning in. Ken, always appreciate you. Javon, I know, was in the chat earlier, shouting out the Philly teams, of course. So thanks for tuning in, John. Shake Griffin, thanks so much for tuning in. And we appreciate you and see you guys all tomorrow. Any final words, Trevor or Elliot? Any shout outs you like to make?
Brewers. Go Brewers.
Brewers fashion to blow a 2-0 lead in the division series. I could see it already. Quiet from the Chiefs. I did hit a big anytime touchdown today, our first touchdown, so it was a big hit for your boy. So feeling good. Tuck me in tonight, although I was rooting for the Chiefs since I hate the Jags in the AFC South. But enough football talk. This is a college basketball show. We'll see you tomorrow for the Big South episode and the Atlantic Sun. Always a treat. Thanks, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Toodles.